And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is the Soundcheck portion of the show. Tell us how we sound. Dave,
Yes.
say something.
How do we say something? Something. How does this one sound in particular? We were concerned with the levels. We had some technology issues before. We had to hot swap out a laptop. We should be good to go.
Technical difficulties. Nothing we can't handle.
I was So let's hear the clicks.
Well, there's no Bronco Fett in the chat tonight because apparently it's his wife's birthday and he's got to spend time with her.
So should I like turn on my iPads, like go log into YouTube and turn on the volume so that we could get that echo like we did last night?
No,
let's do that.
Let's not do that.
Okay, I'm just checking.
I am going to unplug these headsets though.
Good call.
All right. And
Lunagirl can hear me. That's good.
That is always a good thing.
Can you hear me at normal, like Dave volume?
Right.
Is the question. I can make sure you're not hearing me from Jason's mic. Oh, my fucking neck. Oh!
You gonna make it?
Yeah. Yep. Like cutting down a tree of fucking 45 minutes before you do a show.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta get the 5-star review up.
I gotta get the 5-star review up.
What was that?
I don't know.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Yes. No. P is for
vagina.
Fair enough. It's better than what I was going to say. All right, I got that on Do Not Disturb because, God, I can't wait till I'm not responsible for this fucking this donation drive.
Oh yeah, you're still doing that.
Yeah, till Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right.
So instead of this or that, we're just going to talk the fantasy football draft real quick.
Sure.
And then we'll do everything else as normal.
Yep. I have to.
He's focusing.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I can do that here. Let's utilize the technology that I have at my fingertips.
Riveting stuff, I know.
Look, this is the pre-show. Fuck you and your rivets. Oh, I think that's right. Kelly texted me directly. All right, I'll do that then. I want to make sure I have something prepped for the Red 5 as opposed to just winging it.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say things and then move on.
Okay. All right, that works.
If I had any gumption today, I would have done a 30-second video for going into it. And I think we should do a read, like a Red 5 read, because they have on their Google Drive, they have like stuff kind of pre-made.
Oh yeah.
We could just do that for our 30 seconds, and then Red 5 would be taken care of.
Well, because I was listening to a couple days ago, I was listening to Force of Light Entertainment, and they have like a pre-recorded Red 5 blurb that right at the top of their show before anything else.
Yeah, it's in the Google Drive, the shared drive for the Red 5 network. Right. So we just need to incorporate that.
Yes.
I was going to upload it when I got here, but my laptop went. So I think so fat.
All right, we got a lot of people in the chat. We ready to do this?
I think so.
All right,
we can go a little early. A little early.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think we're good. We don't have to report an early takeoff. We're within the limit.
Yep, 10 minutes. All right, your toast, and give me a countdown when you're ready.
Yeah, countdown like that. Thing is, it's like the font is weird.
What, on my laptop?
Yeah, it's like a.
You're just not used to it.
I'm just not used to it. Ready, go. to the 2,977 victims of the 9/11 terror attacks.
Yep. Yeah. And we're going to get into that quite a bit.
Yes.
Because what are we talking about today?
Today is Jason and Dave talk about 9/11.
Yeah.
We are a few days away from the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And we're gonna get into it. You're gonna hear the Jason and Dave story of what happened during 9/11. And here are some of our thoughts on the aftermath and things that happened to us afterwards that were direct cause, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about how we feel with the closeout of the Afghan war.
Yeah, and word of warning now, it's probably not going to be the typical happy-go-lucky sidebar cantina this week.
Yeah, this is a heavy subject, and it deserves that heaviness because it was the world took a pivot that day.
Yeah.
In that moment. So, yeah,
everything changed. So that being said, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sidebar Cantina, the podcast where we talk about Star Wars, pop culture, Quaker Oats, or whatever the fuck we feel like talking about. I'm Mr. Jason Roskam. With me here each and every single week, the cream of wheat to my instant grits, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Do you prepare those?
Sometimes I do it on the fly. Sometimes they're pre-prepared.
Was instant grits prepared, like pre-made? Like, what do you...
Well, they're instant grits.
Grits?
Yeah, so they
grits
were not...
are fucking terrible. I don't like grits at all.
Fun fact, I had never had a grit in my life until I joined the Air Force and had them at one of the chow halls.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think the first ones I ever had was at a Waffle House in Biloxi.
Yeah.
So,
and the first time I had ever heard of grits was during my cousin Vinny.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true.
Before that, I had no idea what a grit was.
Yeah, it's grits.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, as we said at the top, today we're talking about 9/11. But before we get into that, we got some other things to talk about. First, why don't we start with the Red 5 Network?
Let's talk about the Red 5 Network. So our followers, us being like our podcast family, have been asked to participate in voting for the 2021 Parsec Awards. Have you seen some of that traffic come across?
Oh, yeah.
Did you vote?
Of course.
So you and I both voted for our favorite sci-fi and fantasy releases from January 2020 to July 2021. That's an interesting time frame.
Yeah,
I think it's their first annual.
Yeah,
it's a great idea. I love that idea. Lunar Girl put the link to said voting in our link tree, which is I believe in our YouTube.
Yes, I put it in all of our descriptions now. Our link tree.
Yes.
It's in our YouTube descriptions. It's in the audio podcast description. So if you want to connect with us on other layers, it's all in that link tree. So do it.
Yeah, go to the link tree, which is posted on our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and Discord. So please take 3 minutes to go vote. And it's fun. It's actually a cool little exercise in kind of remembering what had happened in the past year. Did you look at Discord? Like, so with with your setup, because my laptop took a shit, I don't have Discord up, and I had a pop-up came up over here on my iPad, and apparently it said the P is for vagina, and it quoted me as saying that. I did not say that. I said P is for,
and I finished with.
He finished with vagina. So we need both to have credit for that one.
Yes.
P is for vagina. That's what he decides he's gonna. That's what he's gonna.
Is this a T-shirt idea?
Yeah.
Like what's going on with this?
Oh my god.
That was part of our pre-show banter, by the way. So if you're listening to the audio and you're like, "What the fuck are they talking about?"
Yeah.
You got to subscribe to us on YouTube. YouTube.com/C/The Sidebar Cantina.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Yes, it's the Sidebar Cantina.
And you can catch all the pre-show and post-show banter.
Yes. So yeah, let's move on.
Okay, so that's it for the Red 5?
Yes.
All right, we'll have a lot more to say about them at the end of the show.
Yes.
Normally we do a this or that, but we felt it was probably a little bit inappropriate to have a fun poll regarding our topic this week, September 11th. So we are not doing that segment this week. However, I do want to talk about our fantasy football draft that we had last night. The Sidebar Cantina Fantasy Football League is in full swing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in a swing. I don't know about full.
Games start this Thursday.
They do.
And
then it will be full.
And who's your first week opponent, Dave?
I believe it's you.
Yeah, that's right. So you and I.
And I'm
week one.
I'm already the underdog in it. So, storm alert. Yeah, I'm already listed as the underdog. I got some person who claims to be the champion of this league.
I am the champion. I'm the defending champion of our fantasy football league.
He got a C+ in his
draft. C+.
Yeah, so I got a C+ this year in our draft, and I'm hoping that it turns out the same way.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually got the second highest grade in the draft this year, and I'm like, oh fuck,
you're screwed.
I'm done.
Absolutely screwed.
So we'll see how it all plays out. But we're probably going to talk about fantasy pretty much every week here on the show, but I think we'll try to save it towards like the end of the show so the people who don't give a shit about sports and football and all that, they don't have to listen.
And you can tune into the Escape Pod guys because they're going to be doing the booth in the back.
That's right.
This year. So they'll be doing like sports and fantasy specific stuff. So you can turn into the tune into those guys. Don't turn into them. That'd be weird.
It would be.
Be a good Rick and Morty episode.
One last thing before we get into our weeks, we have a new 5-star review. And just to remind everybody, if you go to iTunes and you leave us a 5-star review, we will read whatever you write in that review verbatim here on the show. So that being said, we have a new review from the Gauze85, and he or she says, great show. Love the topics they pick. Love the hosts. Love the show. Give them a listen, and I know you'll have a blast, and we'll keep coming back for more. Simple and effective.
See,
I like it. So thank you, the Gauze85.
I think that's one of the Red 5 guys, I think.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Oh no, leave the fucking reviews.
Yes, and remember, Dave will suck your dick. We will read whatever you write in the review. So please do that for us. And if you review us anywhere else other than iTunes, just take a screenshot and send it to us or Luna Girl, and we'll read that on the show.
Yeah, DM. You can DM it or something. There's shit. We have fucking email addresses too. We have sidebarcantina@gmail.com where you can email us these things.
So honestly, does anybody use email anymore? I mean, for like personal communication?
Well, based on how many emails I've gotten for the donation stuff for the Afghans, a lot of people are still like, put my email address out there. One of my like separate ones that I used for Lodge that I now is out there for fucking all this other shit. Yeah, a lot of people were emailing, and you know what? I'm cool with that. Like, either text me or fucking email me. I don't want to talk to you on the phone.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the same way when it comes to phone talking. Yeah. Like, I never want to, like, if you call me, I'm going to think of every excuse in the book to not answer that phone call.
Yeah, leave me a voicemail. It's most likely going to sit there until I feel like I have to feel like listening to voicemails. It has to be like,
well,
I have to clear this red fucking number off of the thing. So fuck.
Well, I mean, if you have the voicemail that just like gives you the text transcript of it.
I thought I had that, and then it like stopped working. It just said, fuck you, we're not doing it. Kathy's still works. Mine, no.
Yeah, so now you don't even have to listen to somebody's voice. You can just read what they said and like, okay, I'll get back to them at some point.
Yeah. Text me, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Or email. I'm fine with email.
Yeah.
It all comes to the same fucking magic box.
True, but I mean, email seems, and I hate to say it, but it seems so archaic at this point. Like, I haven't used, outside of work, I haven't used emails to correspond with anybody in a long time, like 10 or more years. Whereas that used to be like my primary way to keep in touch with people. For normal
correspondence, yes, I can see that. But yeah, again, the beauty of having a fucking supercomputer in your pocket.
The last person that I had to constantly email to keep in touch with was my father, because he still refuses to do any kind of social media. And for the longest time, he refused to have a phone that could do text messaging. So I had to email him. So
does he now have a smartphone?
No, he has a flip phone, but he can text on it, but it only uses like the 9 fucking numbers.
That's fucking great.
Watching him try to text, I'm like, oh, Jesus. All right.
Yeah, circa 2001. That's what we're.
But again, he's one of those very anti-social media, anti-smartphones.
Look, I can't blame him, honestly.
Yeah. But anyway, that being said, we ready to get into our weeks?
Yes.
All right. So for me, first of all, I want to issue a huge congratulations to a good friend of mine. His name's Brad. I work with him over in the Air Force. I met him about 5 years ago or so when I first joined the Cyber Squadron, and he was a senior airman when I first met him. And at first, I actually didn't like him that much because I thought he was kind of a prick, and he was this young, cocky kid. I'm just like, oh God, shut up, man. And over time, like we very quickly became friends. We had a lot of the same interests, and now he and I are like really good friends. and he went away to get commissioned to join the dark side. So he is now a lieutenant in the Air Force. He just graduated this last Friday. So congratulations to my friend Brad. He now technically outranks me, and I'm okay with that.
Did he? Who does his first salute?
Oh, I have no idea.
No, I got to be the somebody's first salute.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think it would be at the location where they get their commission.
No. So the whole, you know how all that works, right? They have like a silver. I think it's a silver dollar.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, the silver dollar. Like I got Josh's when he commissioned.
Nice.
Which was it was really, and I was really honored, like to, because that's the thing, you never get that again.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Now he has to be really, really cheap.
Oh yeah, no, I busted his balls the whole time he was gone. Like, so have you gone through the cheap ass officer course yet?
Yeah.
Like where they teach you to, be cheap with your money and all that.
It's not even being cheaper than money. It's just like, you know what? Anyway,
all right, don't want to get ourselves in trouble. I mentioned that I've been playing the Old Republic again.
Yeah,
I've been playing through the Bounty Hunter storyline because that's one of the main storylines that I never finished. In fact, I barely ever even started it, honestly. And I'm finally working my way through that. I made a Chiss Bounty Hunter, and he's awesome.
Nice.
And I'm working my way through it. And I'm having a lot of fun. And I think the Old Republic is so underrated for hardcore Star Wars fans. If you have the time, I know that's the big issue, is having the time to dedicate to a game like this. It's some of the best Star Wars content available out there right now. And you're really missing out if you haven't tried this.
And I agree 100%. I mean, I had the account. I paid for a subscription for a while. Tried to make time for it, but it is a time sink. If you can sit down and have time to sit in front of the computer for 3-4 hours at a time, not working, then that's your thing. I mean, and it's really good. I wish it would get more mainstream. I want to see this story become canon, not Old Republic turn like not. I don't want Old Republic to change so it can be like make canonic. You know what?
Like fit into the current canon.
Yeah, I don't want to see them change what they're doing. I want what they're doing right now to now become the canon. Yeah,
and honestly, the whole concept of multiverses is really starting to explode in, like Marvel. They're about to go into this massive fucking multiverse thing. So why not adopt that into Star Wars too? Why not have multiple different timelines? Like, this is the current canon, but this is another timeline going off in a separate multiverse. Why not? Marvel's doing it. DC's doing it. This is about to become a huge fucking thing over the next couple of years.
I don't want that to happen. I don't want a multiverse thing to happen, because honestly, with the Old Republic, you don't need that. To make it,
and that's the beauty of that, is because it takes place so far in the past.
Right.
It doesn't really affect anything going on now.
There's the multiverse concept is there's like some anchor in reality, like our current reality, whereas Star Wars is that space opera that's not supposed to like be anchored in that type of reality. Like when you're talking about like temporal distortion and like shit and that astrophysicists and cosmologists are talking about, like with this multiverse thing, we don't need that in Star Wars. I don't want to science it up, honestly, because if they start going down that path and they half-ass it, I will lose my fucking mind. I'll lose my mind. It's bad enough right now that I have to deal with Star Wars physics. That's may or may not be a real thing. Leaning towards the nod thing. But I don't need them to do that. Now, especially like you can take this awesome content and you don't have to do shit. You can just fucking boom, canon. All right, moving on.
Yeah.
So, and they're still paying for the fucking game. They're still producing it.
Yeah,
it's
they've got a new expansion coming. I think at the very end of this year or the beginning of next year. So they're still making content. And again, it's basically 8 games in one, because you've got the 8 different classes that all have their own individual stories. And they're all completely different. They're all completely separate experiences from each other. And they're all really good.
Yeah, I agree. So, I 100% hands down approve of that message.
Yep. The only other thing I had to say was there was a brief period of time this weekend where I actually thought I had the Delta variant. So
yeah, no shit. You fucking you made some comment in a fucking group in our Star Killer Studios group chat.
Yeah. So
like, what the fuck, dude?
Friday night, I started feeling weird. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like, I had kind of a headache. I was kind of tired. Kind of like I just kind of felt like gross inside. I'm like, but it didn't feel like I was sick. There was no fever, none of that. I'm like, I feel fucking weird. And to just kind of head it off, I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me take a dose of NyQuil before I go to bed on Friday night. So I did. Slept for like 9 hours. Woke up groggy as fuck on Saturday, like super groggy, as you do sometimes when you medicate like that. But I was groggy all fucking day on Saturday. And I still had a fucking headache. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm really fatigued. I have a fucking headache. Do I have COVID again? Like, is this really happening right now? So I'm ready to go get a fucking test on Sunday. I'm like, if I still feel bad on Sunday, then I'm going to get a test. And I was kind of kicking myself for taking that NyQuil on Friday night because, I don't know if the grogginess, like that whole next day, was because of that, or if it was because of like some sickness fatigue.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, I'm not taking shit on Saturday night. I'm going to get up on Sunday, see how I feel. If I still feel bad, then I'm getting the fucking COVID test. Woke up Sunday morning, felt perfectly normal. No issues whatsoever. Have felt perfectly fine since then. So I'm just like, wow, that was a scary day and a half where I'm like, do I have fucking the Delta variant here?
I'm gonna put that plate. Is the plexiglass still here? Yeah, we're gonna put the plexiglass in between us.
It's too late. You're touching the laptop I was just touching earlier, so you've got the Delta variant now. So
shit, motherfucker.
Good luck. But that's my week. What about you?
Dude, I alluded to it. The donation gathering has been like
donations
taking up a lot of bandwidth, and it's amazing how many people we kind of had to turn away because of just volume.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like things that they wanted to donate, and we really like the base had put a pause on donations so that they could get their shit together.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been collecting during that.
Okay.
So next week I'm basically gonna fucking roll out with a steak body and fucking hopefully get everything that's in there. Dude, the fucking place is the American Legion Hall is packed to the gills with donations.
Like what kind of stuff is it? Like food, clothes?
It's more like diapers, wipes, baby formula. They had stuff for the deployed guys like the Gatorades and Red Bulls and towels, sheets, underwear, kids underwear, like shit like that, like basic necessities.
Yeah.
There was a company called hang on, I don't want to fuck it up, but it was a company that is a local company that makes diapers and feminine products. They made a large donation of things. That company is called fuck if I can remember. God damn it. Firstquality.com. So they made the donations. I'm here to tell you, like, look at all the shit. That's just
it's a lot.
It's there, and that's actually there's a video that was like 4 days ago. And I got an email this morning. It's like, hey, we dropped off a U-Haul van full of stuff today. Fuck. So I legitimately don't know if a steak body is going to be enough. And it's amazing. I can't take any credit for it. I all I did was fucking start it. Everyone else that's participated and made their donations, and that's been amazing. I'm ready to tie that off, though. Honestly, it's a lot of bandwidth that I didn't have to begin with. So I'm looking forward to being able to direct all that positive energy directly to the base and let them handle it. But yeah, there was a need immediately for what we were doing at the time. The largest airlift ever.
Yeah.
Bigger than the Berlin airlift, in terms of how many people were being moved. I mean, almost the KC-10, which is not a people mover, right? It is not even a cargo mover, really. It is an air refueling platform. Like 3,000 people it moved in that time frame when everything was going on. It's dumb. It's astounding. Like it's
very analogous to what we're going to be talking about today with the 9/11 and how so many people stepped up in the midst of this tragedy. And now with the situation going on, that's directly related to 9/11, people are stepping up again. The military is really stepping up again. And
weeks, months, years from now, when we look back on what's occurred over the past month, it's going to be truly remarkable. And I'm glad I was able to do my little part for it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Kathy's been like kind of getting on me. Not getting on me, but I haven't golf is like a big part of my personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to play a lot of golf.
I know.
It was
missed a lot of work time playing golf, from what I remember.
Yeah, and I was still the best. So whatever. Play video games too. Don't forget those.
Oh, I remember.
And drank. Anyway, so yeah, I haven't really been playing, and I had the COVID excuse last year, and then this coming year, I haven't made time for it. So Kathy's making me make time for it because I need the exercise. I need to get outside.
Well, don't you have a trip coming up too?
I do, in about a month.
Yeah,
golf trip, which I don't know if I'm going to be playing good enough to actually do well in that tournament, but it'll be fun. It'll be nice to kind of.
It's going to make sure you're not rusty.
Yeah, so I'm out there and I'm playing. So that's been nice. It's nice that my wife is the one that's pushing me towards like doing this, because then I don't feel like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing.
Right,
right.
I mean? Well, I think our wives have a real perception on when we're at a point where we need that leisure time, where we've either run ourselves to death doing work or other commitments or whatever, and they sense when you need that sort of leisure time, and they'll kind of push you into it sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm glad they did, or I'm glad she did.
Yeah.
And today we wanted to get up this morning and go down the shore for the sunrise, right? Just to fucking, like, we had the whole holiday weekend. We had also time off. We really didn't do anything. So let's get up early and fucking go do that. We overslept. Like, we got up at 6 and the sunrise is 6:30. We're like, we're not making it to the shore. Yeah. So, but we still went. We took the puppy and, we went down to the dog beach. We had, if you follow my dog on Instagram, you can see that she got into the water and splashed around, had a good time. And that was, we were down there and walked around and came back, and then I cut a huge tree branch and then came here.
All right.
So that's it. Week concluded to this very moment as we sit right here. Do you notice the chat's not advancing? Like it.
Oh, yeah. They're either mesmerized or they're like, all right, this is boring. We're out.
Yeah, boring. Well, at least it's boring and not, Lunar Girl. Thank you. Thank you, Lunar Girl. Yeah. What is my dog's Instagram?
So before we move on, I do find it very interesting because we're going to talk later on when we talk about 9/11, the whole East Coast, West Coast conversation. I do find it funny that you talk about going to the beach to watch the sunrise, because growing up in California, we'd always watch the sunset over the beach whenever I go to the beach for, whatever during the summer. It's always like, oh, sun's getting close to setting. Let's fucking like wait on the beach and watch it go down. It was.
Yeah. And in New Jersey, you can get that. You have Sunset Beach just down in Cape May. It's like at the very, very end of basically New Jersey. At the tip there, it's called
just the tip.
It's called Sunset Beach, and you can go down there, and it is a good sunrise because it goes right over the horizon. Like it's a good. But
it's not over the water though.
It is over the water.
Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
Because of the way it juts out.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey has that, like with the Delaware Bay, like it does. It disappears right into the water.
All right, fair enough.
And that's really the only place, though. I mean, unless you're seeing it over the Back Bay, or the Intercoastal, like otherwise, Cape May is really the only place in Jersey you're going to be able to get that.
Yeah. So anyway, that being said, are we ready to move on to our main topic? Do we need a break or anything?
I don't need a break. I'm good.
All right, give me a second to fill up my beer.
Yeah, throw some while your dick beaters are in there. Why don't you give me some ice? Fill that up. That'll keep me going.
Do you want my dick beaters on your ice?
Yes.
All right.
I don't care, Jason. Your dick beaters are on that ice probably at some point anyway.
No, I normally just go right from the fridge into the whatever.
I'm not concerned. Thank you. My dog's Instagram is pup_adventuring. So yes, thank you, Luna Girl. You are correct. It is pup_adventuring. I'm just going to pour the rest of this in here.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers, for this delicious Dalmore, which is now on the rack as an empty.
All right. We're ready to move on?
Let's do it.
So, September 11th. Hard to believe that we're coming up on 20 fucking years. We're recording this on September 6th, so we're 5 days away from the 20th anniversary. And I'm sure it's going to be all over the fucking news. I'm sure fucking Biden's going to do some big thing for it. I'm sure it's going to be a whole big ordeal. And as it should be, because it was such a pivotal moment in our lives and in the history of the world, honestly.
Yeah.
And we got to live through it. So we're basically going to kind of reminisce, talk about it a little bit, talk about some of the specifics, take a look at it from a 20 years later perspective and kind of where we go from here. So I figure we should start by kind of telling our stories.
Right.
Where were we? What were we doing when the shit went down? Because everybody knows the history at this point. If you don't know what happened.
If you don't know what happened, download the 9/11 Commission's report.
Right.
It goes into it's written like it's a book, not necessarily like it's not like a FAA accident investigation, which is kind of what I was expecting.
Right.
It's not written like that. It's more written like a novel. Let me go first because like this is a very interesting thing. You kind of alluded to it, the East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
Obviously for us in the East Coast at like 8:45 in the morning, we were already at work, if not like just getting to work, which is, fairly telling, right? Because of the timing of all this. They knew when people were going to be there. They knew when it was going to be like they weren't going to hijack a red eye to do this thing.
Right. Yeah. The hijacking started like 7:30 in the morning, somewhere around there.
It was between the multiple hijackings. I mean, I think the last airplane that pushed off the gate was Flight 93.
Yeah, 93 was. Yeah, so I got the takeoff times here. So 7:59, 8:14, 8:20, and 8:42 was United 93 for the takeoffs.
Yeah, and they had a delay. So yeah, I was in the military. I was in the unit I retired out of with that particular. It wasn't that airplane. It was before we updated airplanes, so we were still flying a tanker version. And what the most interesting part of that particular morning was that I was leaving for a TDY. So the house was empty. Kathy was at work. She was working off base at a dental office. My daughter was in daycare at BCC, which is like in Pemberton.
Yep.
And my son Jeff was in the daycare on base proper.
Yeah, because they were only like 2 and 4 years old, something like that.
Yeah,
at that point.
Jeff was born in '96, so he was a month and a half shy of his 5th birthday.
Okay.
And Kate was born in '99, October '99, so she was almost 2. But yeah, they were in daycare. Like the house was empty. I was getting ready to leave on the trip. I was in a flight suit. Like at the time, I was a maintainer, so I didn't. Most of the time we wore fatigues. At the time we were still in BDUs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for when we went to go fly, when we go on the trip, I was the specialist that went on this trip, and we get to wear flight suits. So these are my flight suits, and I had music going in the house and be bopping around, and had been outside to load. I loaded the car. We were actually going west. Our first stop was Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
That was our first RON. So, it was a relatively supposed to be a longer trip.
Yeah.
And I went out, loaded up the car, and was still kind of in the house, just, killing time because I didn't want to go in the office yet because it wasn't time for us to be there yet. It was a later takeoff.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been outside, and this is the thing that struck me the most and has always stayed with me is how fucking nice of a day it was.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous fucking day. It was that perfect September day, like where the temperatures were a little bit cooler. There wasn't a fucking cloud in the sky. It was severe clear, like we like to call it. And I remember that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Fucking the weather's perfect. We're going to be able to take off and not have to worry about being fucking slammed around in thunderstorms that you usually get during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So what my mother-in-law, I was in the upstairs bedroom, and my mother-in-law calls, right?
And you were living on base, right?
Living on base. So we were on base, and this is going to be important later. Like, so the base proper, right? McGuire Air Force Base is like this enclosed area over here.
Yeah.
Falcon Courts North is where we used to live, which was off base. So it had its barrier, but it was actually physically located off base. So you had to drive through a gate to go out onto the, into reality, and then back through another gate to get onto the base proper.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we were living off base or in base housing, and mother-in-law calls me. I pick up, and she worked at the airport.
Philly?
Yeah, at Philly, and she worked at the time for U.S. Airways, I think. Yeah, I think she was already with U.S. Airways. She went from American over to U.S. Airways, and she said, "Hey, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center." I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, it was like, no, nobody, that's just what I heard." I'm like, "Well, that's fucking like." I had the cordless phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cordless phones. I had the cordless phone, and I walked over to the bedroom window and just like pushed the blinds open and looked outside. I'm like, somebody fucked up. Like, it's in a day like today to fucking fly into a building like that.
Yeah.
Like, and I say that because around that area of New York, there's constantly small aircraft traffic. You have helicopters, you have, guys in Cessna 172s that fly around. I mean, it's one of those areas where it has a lot of general aviation air traffic. So the idea that somebody could crash into a building is not that far stretch.
Right.
In a smaller aircraft, would never in my wildest dreams have imagined that an airliner was going to do it. So the fly's going to bug me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go to the window. I'm like, God, man, somebody fucked up. And I hung up with the phone. And I walked over to the TV in the bedroom, and I turned on the TV. And when I turned on the TV, I'm almost positive we had it on channel 10 and, local Philadelphia station, and turned it on, and they were showing like the smoke coming out of it. Like, holy fuck, that's a big hole for a little airplane.
Yeah.
And then as I'm watching it, I watched live when the second one hit. So, and here's what's unique about my particular story. Because we were on base, but not on base, and I knew Jeff was on base. The first alarm that went off in my head was, we're under attack. Right. My first thought was, we're under attack. My second thought is they're gonna fucking, the base is gonna close up like a fucking, like nobody's business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jeff's there.
Yeah.
If they close the base before I can get on there, Jeff's gonna be by himself.
Right.
He's gonna be stranded. So I fucking got into the fucking car. I got through the gate just as the fucking Humvees were pulling up.
Oh, really?
With the 50 cals and everything else. So obviously the base the base went on lockdown. So I drove to the office, and I was fucking just foaming at the mouth, like, what the fuck? And we got into the office, and all of us were just sitting there. Just
yeah, the office at your work center, not where Jeff was, right?
Correct. Like, because at that point, like, all right, Jeff's going to be better off where he is right now than being in the room with me when all this other shit's going on. Because at the time we were in that office area where if you weren't cleared to be in there, we had to fucking hit the lights and do all the other stuff, right? So he was better off where he was. And at least I was on the base. So if I had to go get him, and figure that out, at least I could get to him.
Yep.
So went to the office and we watched, and we were watching so I was trying to find this video, and I remember it fucking clear as day. It was one of the reporters who was in the Pentagon, right? His office was in the Pentagon, and they were like, he was given some fucking report. You could see his like office background.
Mm-hmm.
And when the fucking 757 hit the Pentagon, you saw like his reaction, like, the fuck was that? Like that kind of reaction. And we're like, this is unfucking believable. Like, it went from kind of that disbelief to how am I, like, what this has escalated to the point now, like, what can we expect next?
Yeah.
McGuire Air Force Base is 2 hours away from New York, even less flying time. It is a very visible asset in the middle of New Jersey. And, you don't have to do a whole lot of research as a bad guy to fucking figure out that it's a strategic location.
Yep.
So we were fucking really wondering, like, what can we do to better our situation here?
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, we were crew rested. We fucking had an airplane full of gas.
Yeah. You were ready to go.
Let's fucking go. Let's go do something.
Yeah.
Because at some point there's got to be fighters in the air. We got to be moving towards something. And unfortunately, they didn't. They didn't launch my crew to do that, and we got involved in something completely separate. The irony of that particular day, like the rest of it kind of blends into this mesh of just the obscene, right? It's just the disbelief that something like this can happen. And when you're looking at the pictures on the news of when the towers fucking fell and we're standing there just going like, it's a movie. Like, this can't possibly be happening for real. It can't possibly be happening like within a fucking 2-hour drive of where I'm standing right now. Right. And I'm standing here helpless. And this feeling of helplessness was huge for us, because that unit, like what we did, I mean, I was part of the military. I was part of something that should have prevented this.
Right.
And that same day that all these things were happening, like, I had this profound sense of just failure, right? Like, we didn't do our job. We didn't keep this from happening. Like, a lot of people died today because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. And we didn't keep this from happening. And I still carry that. Was there anything I could have done personally? No.
Of course not. Yeah.
No, but I think because of the uniqueness of that unit and what we were doing, I think that played into it more, because as we progressed through our military careers and advanced and did more things and engaged at different levels, like, you realize, well, if this level of engagement had happened before, then this would have never fucking happened to begin with. Because I was on an airplane that responded to the fucking Cole when the USS Cole got bombed.
Right.
So that but at the end of that day, it was really what kind of hurt me the most is the fact that I can't do anything to respond to this.
Well, because before that, we were taking much more of a reactive stance to terrorist attacks, like with the Cole and everything else, whereas after this, it became a very proactive approach.
Yeah. So
that's one of the many things that changed because of what happened.
Well, and this is probably as an appropriate time as any to talk about it, but like you're saying, we had a very small group of people in the Department of Defense that were working to like basically keep terrorism out here,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was there. Like assets were out there, things were happening, especially after the coal.
Yeah. But even before that, we had some embassy bombings in Africa and
Embassy
everything.
bombings. We had
Like, so the stuff had
World
started
Trade
to
in
ramp.
1993.
Yeah. So this was all,
excuse
it was all ramping up to something bigger. These embassy attacks and the coal and all that.
Yeah. And, saying that, it did. That was like, for me, when at the end of that day, after just being saturated with the news and everything else, and I went to bed that night, didn't sleep at all, but just this idea of failure, and I needed to make sure that whatever I had to be able to do something, and that was all of us, right? We all had to, like, we were in the United States Air Force. We're in the most powerful military in the fucking world. We just got punched in the mouth. It's time for us to start swinging back some kind of way, and that's like to overcome that for me, that fear, that failure, and fear was never really there. Like, it initially presented itself because it's so crazy to think that this could even be happening and happening so close. Like, fear doesn't even enter into there. It's just this methodology of disbelief, and then now it's reacting. Now everything is just like you're in triage, right? It's just everything's reacting. So yeah, that was the day for me.
Yeah. I think before we get into my day, we need to take a very quick break because there's a fly in this fucking room that is driving me absolutely insane. So I think we're going to take a break, shut off the lights, and kind of get this guy out the fucking door before we continue.
Shut off what lights?
The lights in here.
I don't think the lights have anything to do with it.
Well, no, if we shut off the lights and open that door, he's going to fly towards the other light.
Just fucking kill it.
Well, either way. So we're going to take a very quick break and then be back to continue this discussion after this quick word from our sponsors. I figure I'll piss too. No, but if you look, come over here, you turn these off, open this, he'll fly towards the light. And he was over here a second ago. Just gonna let a half a dozen more in. Where the fuck is he? Of course he's gone now. Because the lights are out. You can't fucking see him.
I so hope this is still fucking.
Oh yeah, no, they're all watching.
Sons of bitches!
All right, I'm gonna take a quick piss.
I'm just gonna kill this fucking thing. I know I should have left my assault gun here.
Find him.
No.
He knows. He knows we're after him.
Meow.
Meow. Nothing over here. Fucker. All right.
Just be quiet. Let's see if we can hear him.
This is two idiots try to kill a fly live on YouTube. All right, well, fuck it. I'm sure he'll start flying around as soon as we start talking again. Supergirl says, please don't edit this part out. All right, give me a countdown and we'll get rolling.
Update time. No. God. Thing's annoying. Oh. All right, countdown.
And we're back. So, we couldn't find the fucking fly on the
We don't have
break.
a confirmed kill, so
Yeah.
there may be disruptions later in the pod.
All right. So getting into my story of that day. So as we alluded to, I was living on the West Coast at this point. I was in the active duty Air Force from 1996 to 2000. And I actually separated in 2000 with the full intent of never going back into the military ever again. And I was living in California. Kristen was there with me. Her and I don't believe we had gotten married at this point. Hold on, July. No, we were married. We had just gotten married 2 months before, July, August, September. Yeah, 2 months before we had gotten married. So we were living in a small apartment in California by ourselves. No kids yet at this point. I was working a job at a pipe supply company in Stockton, California. And we were kind of night owls. Kristen and I, we'd stay up pretty late playing video games or whatever until probably about midnight or so. She'd actually stay up later than me some nights. And we'd sleep. I would just get up the next morning. I'd probably roll out of bed at like fucking 7, zombie my way over to the coffee maker, hit go, get into the shower real quick, grab my coffee in a fucking to-go mug, and I would just bail. Not like today where I get up, I sit in front of the computer, I get online for a while and I do a bunch of shit. Back then, 22-year-old Jason or whatever, 23, I would just like fucking just coffee, go to work, whatever. And my start time was always 7:30. My boss showed up at the place at 7 and I would get there at 7:30, a half hour after him. And it was a normal day. Just I again didn't turn on the TV, didn't turn on the internet or anything. And by the way, this is back when most people were still on dial-up when it came to the internet, and that's kind of important. That'll come into play later. But I'm just driving to work like normal, and I had about 4 or 5 radio stations saved on my on the radio in my car because I don't think I had a working CD player in that one, so it was just whatever the radio stations were. And I'd hear like fucking talking, wait until I find music. A lot of talking. Okay, finally found a fucking song. Driving to work, bebopping to a song, no big deal. And I'm starting to get close to where I work, and I'm kind of having to focus on the road because there's this weird like frontage road that you gotta have to do this weird turn off from the highway to get onto. Anyway, you actually have to like pay attention. And as I
turn down the radio so you can pay attention more.
No, I just kind of tuned out the radio because again, as soon as the song was over and somebody started talking, I'd immediately change the radio station because I don't want to hear people talking. I just want to hear music to kind of ease into my day. But because I had to focus getting into the parking lot of my work, the guy comes on and he's like, okay, and folks, we have an update on what's going on in New York. And I'm like, okay. As I'm like pulling into my parking space, he's like, we can confirm now that the first tower has fallen after a plane, 2 planes have hit the 2 towers of the World Trade Center. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, is this a joke? Like, because, the big thing, especially on the West Coast, and I mean, even out here too with Howard Stern and everything, it was all about like shock jock radio and, guys being fucking stupid and pranks and all that. And I'm like, are these guys for fucking real? Like, did one of the 2 towers really just collapse? I go into the office and I walk into my boss's office just in time. He's got the TV on. Like I can see like the most dead serious look on his face as he's watching TV. And I walk in just in time to see the second tower fall. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he kind of gives me the quick and dirty. Terrorists hijacked 2 planes, 1 into each fucking building, and they're both gone. Just like that. And it's taking me forever to process what he's saying while they're still going on the news. And they're like, we just got word that a plane just hit the Pentagon. And I'm just like, so because again, on the West Coast, we're 3 hours behind. So while all this stuff is going on, after you guys have all gotten up and gotten to work and everything, we're all still fucking waking up over on the West Coast and still trying to, process the sunlight and everything. And now all of a sudden it's the fucking world is on fire.
Right.
So, and for the rest of the day, we basically sat in my boss's office just watching the fucking news. No work was done that day. I think I got 1 call from a client, and all we talked about was like what was going on. And he's like, oh yeah, I need a couple of these gaskets in this one pipe. And and then we just like fucking talked about, can you fucking believe what's going on and everything? So that was kind of my experience. And then I remember going to my computer because I had my own computer and it had internet, and I opened up CNN.com because back then CNN was the only news source I knew of.
Right.
And the fucking splash page, I'll never forget it too. the splash page of CNN's website was just nothing but big words, America under attack. And that's all it was. It's like, fuck, this is fucking real. And yeah, that was it. It was basically me watching this on the fucking news and on the internet. And it was just details pouring in so fucking fast. And it was very hard to process everything that was going on. And I can remember watching Bush come out. He was at that school in Florida, and he walked out to make his first public statement. This was before he made the address later on in the night. And, he came out and he said, America has been attacked by a faceless coward and will have more to follow. And that was it. And the crazy thing for me was watching all of the footage come in it was mostly of the second plane hitting, because as far as we know, there's really only one good video of the first plane hitting, and that was the camera crew that was with that fire department. But once that happened, like, everybody and their brother had a fucking camcorder or a camera or whatever. This, of course, was before smartphones. So could you imagine if this had happened in the age of smartphones? No. There'd be fucking millions.
It would have been in the background of somebody's Snap story. Like, it would have been everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, just throughout the day, just watching these videos rolling in of the fucking second plane hitting, and I'm just like, I still can't believe this is happening. Like, I cannot believe this is real.
There got to be a point, because it's because I turned on the fucking television just in time to see it live. Yeah. And that moment of escalation, like, that was it. That was, like, they were talking about in the chat a little bit, and that moment when that plane made contact with that building was when everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything. And even me internally, to go into that mode of, like, got to get on base, because Jeff is there, and Kathy talked about it in the chat. Mm-hmm. Got to get on base. Got to fucking, like, before everything shuts the fuck down, we're under attack. Do these things, then wait. To process more checklists later. Do these 3 items, get the fuck on there, and go. And then having to be in the office with everyone else. You want to talk about, like, being in an environment, like, a bunch of fucking dudes that are still, like, you can imagine if you were in the military and you were sitting in the shop and what would be going on. Mm-hmm. Like, you're sitting there with these people that are, like, our job is to go fucking execute this mission. And, like, the amount, just the quiet, just the absolute quiet. And, I talking about the quiet, and, when they shut down all the fucking air traffic. Yeah. When that had started to go in the Northeast, and it from being here and from being stationed in McGuire and everything else. This is one of the busiest air corridors in the world.
Yes.
You have several major airports that are all boop, 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 stacked right on top of each other. So it is very, very busy. To not see a fucking airplane when they ground and everything, to not see a single contrail on the most perfect September day ever, to not see a single contrail at one point was just, like, bizarre.
Yeah.
And it just added to this I don't know. It's still really not believable. It's still, like, put myself back in that moment, and still, like, there's no comprehension there.
Yeah. So something else too from that day that I distinctly remember happening. I'm not sure if Kristen remembers this or not, but she would always still be in bed when I got up to go to work and everything. Mm-hmm. So I called her within that first half hour or so, and I think she was still in bed, and I woke her up, and I'm like, have you seen or heard what's going on? And she's like, no. I'm like, you need to turn on the news right now, because a lot of shit is going down. So, because again, on the West Coast, we were still waking up.
Yeah.
Essentially. And after this, it was weird, because you had a much different perspective at the time, being in the military at the time, being so close to the action, whereas I felt all I could do was just watch from afar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was never afraid of anything, even though I know people throughout the country were a lot of people were living in constant fear from this point on. I was just more angry. I'm just like, these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Before that day, I didn't know a thing about Afghanistan. I didn't know who Al Qaeda was. I couldn't have pointed to Afghanistan on a map before that. But I guarantee you, most of us were fucking Afghanistan experts.
Yeah.
By the end of the following couple of weeks.
Well, you would hope anyway.
Yeah. So it was sensory overload for me that day. It was just so much going on, and just I couldn't believe it.
And for us too, we became at McGuire. It became the staging area for all of the fire emergency equipment, like all the heavy equipment they were bringing in to do excavations to still try and rescue people. Like that entire effort was staged out of McGuire.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with my unit. But we weren't doing anything else. Like we weren't participating in the cap that was going on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when flying is your mission and you can't fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And our primary asset was overseas.
Ooh.
So we're trying to get that home.
Yeah.
And the tankers are up there doing their thing, and we're talking to the pilots when they come down, and like just the 24,000 foot view of what was happening. And the most surreal moment through all of that was just this never ending stream of ambulances and fire trucks and everything else. It just was nonstop it would seem like forever. And after the ambulances and everything else, all that stuff went away. It was all the earth movers and those things, because then this excavation effort began immediately. What was really funny is so the refueling mission was happening in one way or the other. There wasn't really there's almost no flight line activity whatsoever. Like it was so quiet. And so when Bush came, he landed at McGuire.
Oh, okay.
So they brought Air Force One into McGuire, and then he heloed in to
the Trade Center.
To Trade Center. So when
was that night or was that the next day?
I think that was the next day, because it was daylight.
Yeah, because that night he made the address from the White House.
Right. So he was F-15s were escorting Air Force One at the time.
Yeah.
And when those F-15s fucking came screaming over, after not hearing airplanes for a while in my world, hearing those F-15s come and knowing exactly why, and it put a little fucking exclamation point on the fact that this is legitimate. This is America. This is our home, our homeland under attack, which has never happened. You think about Pearl Harbor being in Hawaii and being so far away.
Yeah, but I know there were a lot of analogies made between 9/11 and Pearl Harbor.
Well, and that's you think of where your pivot is, that Pearl Harbor was our pivot into World War II, and this was our pivot obviously into the next 20 years of trying to figure Afghanistan out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fucking crazy being on the base and seeing all this stuff happening. And I tried to volunteer to go up, but I just,
it's part of the rescue effort and everything.
Yeah, just go try and do some of the recovery stuff, because they had, they activated National Guard and did a bunch of stuff, and I didn't get the opportunity, which it was because you wanted to do something, like you said, you're fucking helpless, and I know exactly what that feels like, and it would just makes it worse that you're so close and can't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was the weeks after that. One of the things that came up for me personally was when you started to understand what had actually happened in the airplanes and things like that, right? You started to hear the stories, and that they're starting to put the pieces together. And so the demand for air marshals went through the fucking roof, right? Because the expectation was that if there were air marshals in the aircraft, then they would have been able to stop the hijackings.
Yeah.
So the demand went through the roof, and I, being a young guy and wanting to fucking get into the fight, I put in an app to fucking be an air marshal.
Oh, no shit.
Because, my dad worked in customs,
Mhm.
and this is when customs was still under Treasury. The Department of Homeland Security didn't exist.
Yep.
Remember, that happened because of 9/11.
Yep.
So, they were taking Treasury agents and taking people from other federal agencies and basically saying, hey, you're going to fucking fly on airplanes with your service weapon, and you're going to be an air marshal until we figure this the fuck out. So there was a demand there, and I put my package in, and I was really like, I exercised every connection that I possibly could to see if I could get this thing moved along. And ultimately I didn't get selected, obviously. And I'm glad I didn't, because God, what a shit job. What an absolute shit job to have to sit there and you can't drink too much coffee because you can't go to the bathroom when you're on the plane. You can't it's
Oh, they couldn't go to the bathroom when they were. Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, dude.
No, well, that actually kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about when it came to 9/11 and our attitudes before versus what changed afterwards. And that was how easily these fucking hijackers took control of these planes. Because of that attitude, before was, if there's a plane hijacking, it's like, okay, we'll land, they'll ask for some kind of demands, and we'll just let them have their way. Whereas nobody thought at any point, like, oh, they might just fucking use these as weapons.
Yeah, and we're going to probably mention it later, but we both watched the Nat Geo 9/11 special on Hulu.
Yeah, so yeah, please, if you get the chance over the next week as we're kind of like ramping up into this, it's called 9/11 One Day in America. It's on Hulu. Phenomenal fucking series.
Yeah, really good. And Vickers in the chat is the one who turned me onto it, and thank you for doing that.
And Dave is the one who turned me onto it.
It's actually, aside from the first couple episodes, because it's very, very, the imagery, it's footage I hadn't seen before.
Some of it, yeah.
And it just, it brings a lot back.
Yeah, but it's the good thing about it is it doesn't focus on the terrorism aspect. I mean, besides the fact that that's the incident that happened, it's strictly focusing on the first responders and the survivors.
Yep.
Survivors. And their stories.
Talking to survivors and their stories. So
yeah,
that, especially as you get to the end of it, you don't feel as, not bad, but you know what I mean? Like it's a good story.
Yeah, they
it's the people that were able to come out of this with their lives.
Yeah,
like this the biggest tragedy on the planet.
Yeah, like some actual positive stories that came out of it.
Yeah. So anyway, the special on Hulu, it made me kind of get back into the. I read the 9/11 Commission's report when it came out. It's long. It is a long fucking thing. But one of the things that they get into deeply is like who the security was, and like how they, like, these people should have, like, some of them got identified for secondary screening, and they didn't. Nothing came up. Like the wands that, like, they get, all right, here the guy hit on the metal detector, and they go over, get the wand. No, nothing. You're good to go. When I worked at Philadelphia International Airport in 1994, 95, like up till 97, 98, something like that, those security people, like at that time, and this is still like, you're talking like 7 years later, but the security situation hadn't changed. When I was an employee, I would walk through like where you were checking in. I would open a door, walk through the bag room right onto the flight line. Right. And if the door was open and nobody was paying attention, you could walk right onto the fucking flight line.
Yeah.
Security. They took the guys, the airport cops that were there. They were getting ready to retire. They had revolvers and fucking billy clubs.
Yeah.
Like these guys were not there to fucking protect the fucking airport. They were there to fucking take care of a disturbance, and call somebody else. So the idea of security at a major fucking airport, that was it wasn't a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just window dressing to have Argon Bright fucking security up there with their wands and shit like that. It was annoying. It was a fucking nuisance. So you end up, for us as employees, we'd fucking do an end around, but you didn't, because nothing had happened.
Yeah.
Right. Those attacks and shit like that happened overseas. They didn't happen in the States.
Mhm.
Like, you know,
and even when they did happen overseas, it was always they landed, there were negotiations and whatever. It was this kind of thing, aside from what was it, the bombing, the fucking,
you had Lockerbie, the
yeah,
Pan Am flight.
Yeah, the bombing. But I mean, besides that, like, it was always, you know, just some long ordeal. And the fact that they were so easily able to take over, they had box cutters, you know, the fucking razor blade box cutters.
Not everybody did. Not all of them did.
Right. But then all they had to say was, we have a bomb on the plane. Give us the plane or we'll set off the bombs. And the pilots and the crew, whoever, they're just like, okay. You know, not. And to think about that happening now is fucking insane to me, because I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit here, but then you look at what happened on United 93. Mm-hmm. And I wrote in the notes, United 93 was really the moment where we started, you know, punching back.
Right.
So before this thing was even over, once the people on that flight realized, like, oh, fuck, this isn't just some hostage situation where, you know, they're going to demand some sort of ransom or whatever. Like, we're going to fucking die if we don't do something. And those people immediately, as soon as they knew that, they're like, we have to do something. And that's when we started fighting back.
Yeah. That's when Let's Roll became like, you would go on any weapon system in the United States and it had a graphic on there with Let's Roll.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the springboard for us fighting back. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
And you even just look at, as far as aviation goes, anytime there is any kind of fucking disturbance in the air now on a passenger flight, like if like some asshole jumps up and starts getting belligerent or tries to open a fucking door, tries to get into the cockpit, the rest of the passengers are going to wrestle that motherfucker to the ground, tie him to a fucking chair, possibly kill his ass in the process.
Yeah. Even like within the past weeks, you have people being duct taped to fucking chairs and shit like that because they're being belligerent because of masks, by the way.
Well,
could you imagine? Anyway, I don't.
The reason is irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's whenever somebody looks like that they could be even remotely threatening on a flight, people are going to fucking go into action.
And that's the other thing too, like the big muscle movement that came out of this, right? Obviously, a lot of things changed.
Yeah.
Right. Everything, our whole worldview changed at that particular moment when that switch got flipped.
Mm.
But in an airplane, you went from again, being an aviator, being a maintainer, right? You went from, okay, this is what cabin security is, to now that door stays shut and locked.
Yeah.
There's no exceptions. There's no
it's not like back in the old days when, you know, little Tommy would come up into the cockpit and get to meet the pilots.
Get to wear your wings and fucking go out there and do that shit. No. Never. That'll never happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And for a good reason. And I don't think people realize that airlines, when they bought the airplanes, they had an option to fucking be able to lock the doors like a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was more expensive, they chose to not have that option.
Yeah.
So you're retrofitting all of these aircraft to make sure that this happens. And then you have programs in place where they were actually arming pilots. You know, that was a big thing that people, you know, maybe forget about. It's such the war notwithstanding, it's so hard to believe that one thing could change so much.
Yeah.
One event, this attack, the airplane thing, knock on wood, will never happen again.
Yeah.
Like that was a one-shot job.
Yeah. Never the way it went down.
No.
I mean,
you can't, like, these guys going to flight school to fly 757, 767s, like it spoke to, they had this level of planning that was then incorporated, like, hey, you know, this airplane, they're big airplanes, they can hold this much fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you learn how to fly one, you can fly both.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did.
Yeah. And they exploited a very lax system that we had in place.
Yep.
And the fact that as Americans at this point, we were really kind of fat, dumb, and happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was still, I mean, I think the internet bubble was starting to kind of burst a little bit, but economically we were doing great. Things were going really well for the United States of America at this point. And there was no fear of us being attacked by anybody.
Yeah, no, you think I was? So I went back in active duty in '99. I had been activated in '99 twice for the Bosnia stuff, and I had been on a deployment to, basically for the border patrol for fucking Saddam Hussein, back
the Northern Southern Watch and all that. Yeah,
so they were fairly benign. I mean, the Kosovo thing was big and for other reasons, but
I mean, again, none of it ever really threatened us or our power, especially not us here at home.
Yeah.
This was all stuff that was going on overseas that we committed troops to and everything else, but it never really touched home. And like I said, at home, we were all just kind of fat, dumb, and happy, riding this great economy that was still on the upswing, even though we were having some issues. It looked like the internet bubble was possibly getting ready to burst, and this kind of pushed that forward pretty quick. But yeah, for the most part, things were fine, and then all of a sudden, this changed everything.
Yeah,
and everybody was scared.
Everybody was scared, but there was this not weird sense of unity, but like basically every American knew that they were American at that moment. Like every American had this feeling of they attacked me. As individuals. Like, why do they have this fear? Well, because they attacked me. I could have been in there. I could have been a tourist in the fucking Marriott hotel that got fucking ripped to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been just standing underneath it, taking a picture at that moment. When I was a kid, so the first time I saw the World Trade Center, I was I think I was in middle school, and we went on a trip. We went to like the Lincoln Center or something like that, and like we took the ferry, and fucking holy shit, the World Trade Center, like. I didn't go in it. I didn't get to go to do anything fun in there. We just kind of walked through the plaza, and you're just like, oh my fucking god! Because in the fucking 80s in Philadelphia, the tallest building was fucking City Hall.
Right.
Liberty One was still being built in the early 90, 91 it got finished. So like in Philly, really big skyscrapers weren't a thing, and I was really familiar with Philly. So going and seeing this fucking ginormous towers, and it just, as a kid, just was like, holy shit. And then to think that this symbol was fucking destroyed the way it was, I forget where I was going with that. Fuck. No, I was going to say this patriotism, this nationalism that had sprung from that. People helping people.
Yeah.
And going through all that.
And you see a lot of that too, especially in that Hulu documentary we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's what like almost all of it focuses on, is people helping people and the people who stepped up in this time of crisis.
Yeah. Well, so I got to go to the site in March of 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there. I was TDY. I was TDY in Times Square.
Huh.
And I went down to the site that when things were still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
It had been a time, like it was springtime. They had the big fucking lights going, which I saw from the Empire State Building, which was actually really cool.
Yeah.
As much as I hate New York, at this point, everyone was a New Yorker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And during that TUI, going down there, seeing if you go to the memorial now, like there's a museum there that has like pieces of what was there as like the tribute wall.
Mm-hmm.
So you had these plywood walls that had gone up that people were putting like missing signs, like tributes and things like that. It was right by this church, the St. Paul's Church or St. Paul's Chapel. When you were walking towards the site, there was still evidence, like as you got closer, like things like the street lamps were still filled with ash, right? There were still things that were still out of place.
Yeah.
And that the imagery of that really struck me. Like I have a picture of it. It's on the laptop, unfortunately, but a picture I took of the one of the glass, street lamps that's there by the chapel. And the thing, I have a picture of it after, like, years after. Like, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have a fucking phone camera at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I took basically a picture of the same thing with it being clean and empty, right? That thing was filled with fucking ash and debris, and it put it into context for me. Like, you see these things on TV, and when you're standing there, you're kind of looking around, and there's still stuff in the air, right? Because they're digging, they're pouring water on this thing because there's still fucking materials that are going into the air, and you just stand there, you just fuck me. Like, this is, if you ever needed the gumption or the fucking the pep talk to fucking go punch some fucking terrorist in the mouth, that was it.
Yeah.
Right. That was a fucking huge kick in the nuts. What was funny about that, not funny, but what was interesting about that, let's say, is during that TDY, I made friends with this dude. He worked at NORAD, right?
Oh.
And we were out there for a computer thing, and we got we got chummy, like, sitting there fucking being hungover, and we ended up going to, there was some sporting event on. I don't even remember, but we ended up drinking with a bunch of, like, the firemen and shit like that. And we're military, and they're, like, not letting us pay for shit, and we're trying to pay for their shit because every one of those fire companies, like, when you go off of Times Square, like a block or so away, there's, like, all of these bars and all these fire departments that are right there.
Mm.
And we went bar hopping with these guys.
Oh, shit.
You'd like to think that as military people, we're like, there's a level of badassery, that you're willing to go into. It's like, I know what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
I'm willing to sacrifice my life for this. And they're not only are they willing to do it, they have the opportunity to do it all the fucking time, because the most normal call on the planet can turn into, a fatality.
Yeah.
Let alone all of these guys that went fucking just pouring face first into what had to have been, just thinking about what that would have looked like in person. Seeing the pictures and then looking up and having been there and having stood there and having my mouth agape at a fucking giant hole in the side of one of these buildings.
Couldn't imagine.
And these guys were like, fuck, we got a job to do. Let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, as much as I shit on New York, the reality is that those guys were fucking great.
Yeah, and so many firefighter stories came out of that. Again, that documentary on Hulu.
Well, that documentary following around that Chief Pfeiffer guy.
Yeah,
and kind of seeing, like, he's at that fucking gas leak, and like, as shit's happening, this is a normal day, and and the camera happens to be fucking rolling. Like, how fortuitous is that?
Yeah,
because honestly, it doesn't seem real.
Right.
In this day and age, what you can do, like, with imagery, like, you would think, if this was a movie, like, that looks kind of hokey. I mean, like, is that real? Right?
Right.
Yeah, no, you know why it's hokey? Because it fucking really happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No fucking nobody's writing that story.
Yeah, and it seems so unreal. Just that whole concept, even today, seems so unreal that something like that would actually fucking happen.
Yeah. But when you're talking about the fear that caused, at some point, if you can get through that primal, like, that fight or flight response, right, where it's like, okay, not everybody's trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can go about your normal day, and this is coming, like, I'm saying this from a guy who's fucking has huge issues with fucking whatever the hell it's called. I can't even think of it right now.
Social anxiety, or
that also. No, it's a fucking. What the hell is it? Anyway, it's a thing where you're basically planning for the worst case scenario all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And look, this situation, sometimes it comes down to is this fear, like, is this founded? Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a big part of it was people were wondering, is this the end, or is there more stuff coming? And, I think certain entities kind of fueled that a little bit because, I mean, for one, it was ratings for the news organizations, and for two, it was a way for the powers that be to sort of get their way a little bit more, keep people afraid, be like, we think it'd be a really good idea for us to do this and to do this Patriot Act and to go invade these other countries and everything, because you never know, they might come and kill you. So there was a lot of fear amongst the normal people in the country, because there were, I know a lot of people personally that didn't want to go to theme parks, they didn't want to fly, they didn't want to take public transportation, they didn't want to do anything for years because of constant fear of more terrorist attacks, because of when's it ever going to end? When are they going to attack again? And I know that was going on everywhere around the country. And it's one of those things. If you live like that, though, isn't that kind of what these terrorists want?
Well, yeah. So here's the thing. Hang on. It's hypervigilance is what I deal with. And
okay.
Thanks, Vickers, for helping me out with that. Did it go? Okay. And I get all that, right? But if somebody told you that you're going to wake up one morning and they were going to be throwing airplanes at you, like where you worked, is it so hard to believe at that point? Because it's happened already. Well, like, fear mongering notwithstanding, there's an element to our fucking innocence as a country was lost.
Yeah,
because we had this nobody, since I say that we had the fucking Spanish-American War and there's blah, 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 whatever. Right. But in modern history, right, when in our days as a superpower, nobody, Japan, aside from some little bits that happened in Alaska and Pearl Harbor, mainland United States, we felt pretty fucking invulnerable.
Yeah. Because again, baddest military on the planet.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to fuck with us.
Exactly. And, it's the fact that it did happen, and it happened with people that, on the outset, what you would think shouldn't be smart enough to be able to do and execute something like this. Mm-hmm. We need to make it harder for them to fucking do their bit.
Right.
And we weren't at the time. And
because again, we had our shields were down. We felt like, we're invulnerable. Nobody's going to do anything. We're fine. And it's when you're in that like zero vigilance posture, that's when they fucking hit. And I'm sure they took advantage of that. I'm sure that went into their planning.
Oh, fuck yeah.
When Bin Laden and fucking Khalid Sheikh Mohammed were making the plans for this, they're like, all right, their airline security is pretty lax. They're not expecting this. If we say we have a bomb, they'll probably give the planes over pretty easily. And I'm sure a lot of that went into this preparation.
It had to. Remember, they spent a decade planning it.
Yeah.
The incident in 1993 was probably a test as much as anything.
As the bombing.
Yeah. So, yeah. Saying all that, right? I went in 2012. I went to the memorial, right, and saw it. Mm-hmm. If you haven't, if you're in the area of it, you have to go.
Yeah, I haven't been yet.
You have to go. And the only place I haven't been to Shanksville yet. I haven't seen the Flight 93 memorial. Mm-hmm. But you kind of have to go and realize the footprint of this and what had happened. Like in 2012, the new Liberty Tower hadn't been built yet.
Yeah.
And the pictures I have, you can see it's like 3/4 of the way done. And the museum wasn't finished yet. So they had a handful of like articles that were, in the gift shop, that you could go and look at. The museum is amazing from what I hear. There's, you heard in the Hulu special, like one of the survivors actually works at the museum.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it's very, it's pretty powerful. to see this particular memorial. And I think sometimes people just need a little bit. Like, it's not about the fear at this point, but it's about realizing that at this particular moment in time, like that's going to be 20 years ago, at this particular moment in time, that everything changed, that 2,000 plus people perished because of it. The imagery that you're not going to be able to get out of your head with people falling.
Yeah, that was something we haven't really touched on, but the people that were trapped in the upper floors and
the imagining of being in that scenario and what you would do. And I'll tell you, as good as the fucking Hulu special is, the video rolling and the sounds of the human beings striking the particular part of the building that they were in.
Yep. As the firefighters are in the lobby, you hear boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Your 150 mile an hour impacts.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrifying. They did their job. Like these terrorists, they executed their plan, which I'll segue into fucking the war.
Yeah.
Right. It had to happen.
Oh yeah.
Right. We going in there, we had to fucking go in there with guns blazing. The problem is, this is a country that had basically lived its existence in war. They beat the Soviets.
Yeah. Because the Soviets kind of got into the same situation we did.
Right. Yeah.
And really, it was one of the main reasons why we hadn't gone after Al Qaeda in the first place, or as much as we had before, was because it wasn't the country of Afghanistan that attacked us. It was Al Qaeda, who was this terrorist organization that was within Afghanistan, not really like part of the Taliban, but also they didn't really care what they were doing, sort of a thing. So, but there was always a diplomatic thing there. Like when the Cole happened, and when some of the other terrorist attacks before that happened, we knew it was Al Qaeda. We knew they were in Afghanistan, but there was sort of a diplomacy thing a little bit. Whereas that night when Bush made that address to the nation, I'll never forget it. He said, "We will make no distinction between the people that carried out these attacks and those who harbor them." And he's like, and I remember we gave the Taliban some kind of an ultimatum. It's like, turn over these fuckers to us in the next week or so, or you're fucking done. And, they're like, "We will never bow to the Americans." And it's like, okay. Yeah. And, within a couple of weeks, shit went down. Or was it a couple of months? It's been so long now.
It was. Oh fuck! Let's fact check that, because I don't want to speak out of school.
Yeah. It wasn't that long before we started sending troops into Afghanistan. It was probably like a hair short of 2 months, I want to say, before we started rolling in.
The clicking of this keyboard, I just can't. I can't get used to it. Let's see. Blah 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 blah. War and stuff. 7 October.
Okay, so September, October. Okay, yeah, so it was a couple of weeks. Yeah, like 3 weeks before we started rolling in there. And fuck, I think because the thing too is Iraq plays a part in this as well, and part of Bush's overall quote unquote anti-terrorism strategy and all that. But I just remember, I can't remember if it was Afghanistan or Iraq, where we just for like 40 days and 40 nights, we just launched fucking missiles into their country and just pounded the shit out of them before we started rolling ground troops in.
Yeah. So hang on. Thanks, chat. I don't want, before we get too far back into the war, I do want to talk about, they're talking about it in the chat, and I think it's valid. Like, when these events happen, like the immediate following, like, so you had sports, a lot of us turned to sports to get out of, what's going on
once everything was allowed to come back up, because for a couple of weeks everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And do you know what the first mass public gathering was after 9/11?
Oh shit, I do know that.
Yeah.
What
it was
I can't.
It was a pro wrestling event. It was WWF's SmackDown show, I believe. And it was like the first big public gathering of that many people in one location since September 11th. Was Vince McMahon and the WWF coming out and putting on a show.
So I'm trying to see. Let's see. It was April. No.
What are you doing, fucker?
No, so we went and saw a Yankees game after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
It was Red Sox Yankees. It was a big game.
Yeah.
And the military got in for free in Yankee Stadium.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we went up there and did that. And it, sports had this moment of unity, like whatever the event was, whether it be football or baseball. And obviously this is very American, right? Is our fanaticism for sports and things like that. And a lot of us gravitated towards that. And it was a really a way to have some normalcy, because everything was so abnormal.
Yeah.
For months at a time. Like, you still, every day in the news, you were looking at earth movers moving shit out of the fucking holes in the ground for fucking where the Trade Center was.
Yep.
The scorch marks on the outside of the Pentagon from that being taken. We didn't really even talk about that. One of the guys in the chat said he was on the fucking interstate when the plane crashed into the fucking Pentagon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like right there, huh?
Which is just insanity.
Yeah.
And we did. The sports teams and the country just, it was different. It was just a different feeling. People were a little nicer to each other.
Yeah.
For a little while, because we all had this, like, everyone was in shock. You weren't immune to it. There was this kind of outbreak of, anti-Muslim.
That was a thing, because obviously we knew very quickly that it was these Al-Qaeda, these Muslim extremist terrorists that committed these acts, and it spread into this very big anti-Muslim sentiment across the country for the longest time. And if it wasn't necessarily like an anti-Muslim, but it was more of a, I don't even know the best way to describe it. I'll give you a great example. Not long after all of this happened, Saturday Night Live did a special. Do you remember the one where Robert De Niro came on and he read the list of suspected terrorists? And it was like a bunch of joke names like Shaif Herbush and Ulik Madik and all of that, where it's like he's naming off like all these fake like terrorist names, and it would flash to like these SNL cast members dressed with like the fucking turbans and the beards and everything. Yeah. Whereas you look at it today, they'd never do something like that, because they're, pretty offensive on the scale.
Yeah.
But back then that was like tolerated and even laughed at and encouraged, This is
the face of the enemy.
Right. So even though a majority of Muslims here in America had like nothing to do with it, did not condone it or anything, or did not, encourage it or whatever, there was still a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment, to the point where I remember watching a special probably in 2002 that followed a couple of guys that were Sikhs, which is not Muslim, totally different religion, but they have similar look. They have the beards, they have the fucking turbans that they wear and everything. And there were big Cleveland Browns fans. And this camera crew followed them as they were going to like a fucking Cleveland Browns game in 2002. And they were getting like constantly harassed by everybody else that was there, like spat on and everything else, threatened.
Yeah.
And it was just being tolerated all around. It's like, fuck, man. You can't imagine us ever going back to a point like that. But right after this, that kind of stuff was tolerated, and it was fucking wild.
And I think, even if it did happen today, because I think we're so much more globally connected with everybody
Mhm.
that I think that level of ignorance probably wouldn't exist. You got to think
Right.
at the time. I have in my possession top trading cards from World War II, like from 1938, that depicted the Japanese and the Chinese as as the enemy, and like this just incredibly just racist overtones, but this was the face of the enemy.
Yeah.
Right. This was the ones that the cards that were I should bring them in. That'd be
You
fun.
still have those?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so to kind of go along with that nationalism that you're talking about, this rise in patriotism and everything else, it also kind of led to that very big anti-Muslim sentiment for the longest time, to where at a minimum they were kind of looked at and mistrusted by a lot of people for the longest time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's weird thinking back on that. But that's a thing that happened. Fuck, I had something else I was going to say and I totally lost it.
I feel like you did, and yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh well.
It's gone. So I did want to talk too about the.
Well,
kind of talk about what.
Well, we didn't really kind of finish our thoughts on the Afghanistan war either.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come back to. So yeah, this is as we sit here, for whatever log this gets entered into for perpetuity, right? In September 6th, we have had over the past few weeks just the most extraordinary effort to basically finish what started with this attack. And that was this war in Afghanistan. And 20 years is a long fucking time.
It is
to be at war. The fact that I'm retired out of the military, I'm one of when you retire, think of the generations that there's going to be a lot of people that weren't even in the military at 9/11.
Oh, a lot of the people that I work with now in the military weren't even born.
Yeah, we have a lot of that too.
When 9/11 happened, or they were at least not old enough to remember it.
Yeah, and it's when we were deploying these people to go basically continue to fight this battle. Right now, as we sit here and the war is over, right? Exclamation point. But no exclamation point. The war is over, period. And that doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me. I just here's my thing. It needed to be over. It should have been over 10 years ago. It should have been over when we got UBL, but it's not. I mean, whatever. You can't change that fact. The fact of the matter is it's over now. And we went through extraordinary efforts to basically help the people that helped us in Afghanistan for that period of time. All the time that we spent there, we never really understood the Afghan people.
Right.
And
that was made clear when we left, and all those Afghan troops that we had trained over the years just very quickly laid down their guns and let the Taliban do what they do.
This idea that this idea that they had more time to get this done, like is I have a tough time believing it. I'm nobody.
Yeah.
I'm just some guy that happened to be in the military and was in a unit, and but I could see it.
Yeah. I wasn't surprised. I'll just say that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't either. But what's tough for us right now as veterans of this war, right? My Facebook profile pic is me standing in front of a fucking sign at Kabul.
Yeah.
At the airport. There's this profound sense of we went there with a purpose, right? But we're leaving without one, right? And so I'm hitching all my wagons to this fact that we have these Afghans that we've basically liberated from some place that they were probably going to be executed for because they helped us.
Yeah.
And so we saved a lot of lives, thousands of lives.
And the unfortunate reality, though, is a lot of people are still dying over there because of that connection that they had. And we still have fucking Americans stranded there.
Yeah. I want to temper all of that with the fact that, remember what you said earlier, right? This sensationalism of what's going on with the media doesn't necessarily portray the entirety of the picture.
No, they tell the story they want to tell.
Exactly. And some stories are better than others. And I think we had a commander's call last week on Thursday before the holiday. And the base commander, the Air Base Wing Commander, had gone on there, and he said he actually said some good things. And one of those things was, when you have basically a soccer superstar in Afghanistan, was one of the kids that had tried to fucking basically ride a C-17 in the wrong way to get out of that country. Like, this is somebody that had standing. This is somebody that like had a future, but they believed that they're 1 in a million chance that holding on to the outside of the C-17 was going to get him and save his life. He was willing to take that. Yeah. So it kind of puts that in perspective. Like, there's going to be a point, and I'm going to be the Debbie Downer of an already downer episode, but there's going to be a point where these Afghans that we were trying to basically not indoctrinate. We're not indoctrinating anybody. To bring them into the fold and get their future started in the United States. There are going to be a lot of people at some point that are going to start complaining about it, and then the media is going to start picking up on that, and that same sentiment suddenly will start to grow up, and you have to start. Honestly, you have to think about these American Afghanistan war veterans that saw their friends get killed. By these, and again, by sight, these same people. Yeah. Like, I don't know your story. Like, I don't know if I look at you that you were an interpreter or you worked at the consular's office and you helped America. Well, and think I have to assume that, and that's really, really tough to do.
Well, think about how many stories came out over the last 20 years of this war in Afghanistan, where a massive attack happened in an Afghan military base where it's
inside job.
Yeah, where it was somebody who was an Afghan military guy walks in and just fucking blows himself up, kills a bunch of Afghans, kills a bunch of Americans.
Yeah. Like, how do you? Again, it's like there's hypervigilance, which is what I suffer from, and then there's some reality there. I mean, it's just that's that same reality that that this September 11th could happen. Yeah. Now we have all these Afghans that we're bringing into the country just by sheer percentages. Some of those are going to be bad actors, and how do we figure that? How do we get past that?
And I mean, really, there's nothing that you and I can do. We just have to hope that the people in charge of all this are doing their due diligence and doing as good a vetting process as they can. I mean, because really, what else can we do? It sucks.
Yeah. Well,
but there's literally nothing we can do.
You and I actually are better equipped than most, because we are on our particular installation, since we have those individuals there and they're wandering around. I mean, like, we can see one and say, like, that person's not supposed to be where they're supposed to be, and you fucking make a phone call and you fucking
right. Well, I mean, aside from being vigilant like that, and then aside from also treating them well and with respect and everything else, there's nothing we can do as far as like the vetting or trying to determine, is this a good guy, is this a bad guy?
Yeah. No, we're gonna have to trust but verify, I guess. I don't know, for lack of a better fucking thing to say.
Yeah, I know that doesn't do any good to your hypervigilance, but
fuck no, dude. No. Look, the people that have it are going to have it and we do our best.
Yeah.
And that's why we go to fucking therapy.
And we talk about the Afghan war in the big picture, and the whole reason that we went out there again was these guys punched us in the mouth, and it's like, okay, motherfuckers, we got one for you coming. And we went in there and we laid the place to waste. We found where all the fucking Al Qaeda guys were hiding in caves, took out a shitload of them, took out a shitload of the Taliban. It was slow going, trying to then establish some sort of order and then, try to build up some sort of a puppet Afghan government and army. That's what took most of the time. Like rolling in, eliminating a good portion of the Al Qaeda operatives, eliminating a good portion of the Taliban. That didn't take a whole lot of time. There was like insurgencies like crazy going on after that, but like a majority of it was done. And then after, again, like you said, after we got bin Laden, who made his way to Pakistan 10 years later, getting him, like that objective was done. But it's like, okay, we've already rolled in here. Are we just going to leave this place in fucking shambles? Because that's not what we do. You look back at Japan, you look back
but apparently we do.
Well, that's the new precedent, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's so tough because I feel terrible for those Afghanis that we left behind, especially the women. They actually had a taste of what civilized life actually is, and actually being able to leave their house without an escort and being able to go to school and everything, and they got to live that life for a good 20 years. And now like everything's going to get turned on its head. And I guess for me, the most I can hope for is that this is sort of the kick in the ass for that younger generation that lived 20 years outside of Taliban rules. Like, fuck this. We had it far better before these motherfuckers rolled in, and maybe hopefully someday they spark their own little revolution and can take their country back and beat those oppressors. But I don't know. Apparently it's going to be without us.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Me personally, I said it. It had to happen. We had to come out. No matter what we were going to do, it was going to be like this.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean it couldn't have been done better? Fuck yeah, it could have been done way better. We could have actually. I believe in my heart of hearts that there was better intelligence out there that they chose to ignore because it didn't fit timelines.
Well, yeah, or as we started pulling back,
purely speculation on Dave Martin's part, but that's not something that you don't get a feel for. There's a ground level intel guy that looks at that and goes like, that's a bad idea. Like, I've been in those fucking rooms. I've told those senior leaders that are supposed to be making those decisions that that's a bad idea because Dave Martin's a fucking dick, and that's why he didn't make senior. But I've told those people that they're bad decisions, and they, that's all I can do at that point. But I struggle with this idea that fucking what was those sacrifices for?
Yeah, and that's something that I'd be really curious to talk to the families of all the men and women that died over there, or the guys that were over there that got severely injured and suffering from massive PTSD. Like, what do they think about all of this? Because for me, I only went through Afghanistan a couple of times. It was only there for like a day each time, so I didn't have the time on the ground that a lot of these
facts,
Army guys did.
We were fortunate.
Yeah.
We didn't deploy into those areas. It was scary enough going in and out of there because the level of the threat.
Yep.
And I mean, let's face it, anyway, I don't even want to get into that because I don't know what we can say and not say, but this is, Dave Martin's plug, like I did last week, about like, hey, reach out to your Afghanistan vets and hear what they have to say, because this chapter, right? I've said it, a lot. but this is in our kids' history books or our grandkids' history books, right? There's going to be a chapter dedicated, basically, that's going to start at 9/11, and it's going to fucking get to this point where we are right now. And maybe it'll include these lives that we saved, and hopefully what they progress into a better life. And you know what, I'm not that guy. I can't stand there and tell you like, yeah, things are going to be great. I'm just not that guy. But there are those people, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be like that. I'm just telling you, this guy, for reasons that I've been exposed to and things like that, and that you fortunately may or may not have had to deal with. I want to see them be fruitful and everything else. That has nothing to do with that. It's more about the, we have to, this is our generation's, like, this volunteer force. We volunteered to go there. We volunteered to fucking sacrifice ourselves in Afghanistan. It wasn't Vietnam. It wasn't, hey, you have to go.
Right.
You're drafted. You have to go. Now you go and die over there. No, every single one of us that was there volunteered. We all volunteered. And now that it's over, what do we volunteer for?
Right. That's a good question. And I obviously still think that going into Afghanistan was completely justified, even though,
fuck yeah.
And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I was never a big fan of George W. Like, this was during my younger days, a very liberal guy.
Right.
I voted for Gore, did not like Bush, but at the same time, I was 100% on board with going into Afghanistan and just fucking wreaking some havoc and shoving bombs up these guys' asses and, showing them what was what. So don't get me wrong, I was all for that. But, my big fear now that basically this chapter is closed, whether we like it or not, whether we like the way it was done or not, this chapter is closed. This book is over.
Right.
I just hope we don't get back to, and not we, because I don't think our generation ever will get back to that point where we were in the late 90s and 2000, early 2001, where it's, oh, everything's great, sunshine and rainbows, and it's, nothing can ever hurt us. And I'm afraid that these generations coming after us who never experienced 9/11, who like that's all stories that their parents tell or their grandparents tell. And that was so long ago. And that they get to this point of another like lackadaisical posture where they allow something like this to happen again. Because I have news for everybody out there. Right now, the big narrative is it's the left versus the right, Democrats versus Republicans, this whole little internal conflict that we have within this country. These guys don't care. They don't care that you voted for Trump. They don't care that you voted for Biden. They don't give a shit about American politics. They could give two fucking shits about abortion or gay rights or anything else. They don't fucking care. They just want to kill as many people as they possibly can in the biggest, most spectacular events that they can to help further their cause,
or even death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, exactly. So as we have all of this inner bickering going on in this country, and that's where most of the young people's energy is put towards, is all of these social issues and all the shit that the politics and everything, which, by the way, I didn't give a fuck about politics when I was 17, 18 years old, but that's like all these kids today seem to think about. Regardless, these guys don't care. And if us leaving Afghanistan eventually allows groups like Al-Qaeda to pop up once again, I hope we're still vigilant when the time comes when they decide to plan some other kind of attack. Because like we said in the beginning, they're probably never going to hijack planes again. Like, I think between, Department of Homeland Defense and all of the FAA and everything the way that it is now, that kind of event's never going to happen again. But they're always thinking. They're always planning. They're always trying to figure out some other way.
And they have been for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a very adaptive people.
Yeah.
Like, and this is their tactics. I think you get them off their home turf and it turns into something else. And the unfortunate reality is, with all the social issues that are happening within this internal politics, the politics of the United States is what drives our defense posture.
Yeah.
And, it's tough for us to sit here as, members of the DoD. I mean, I went back into the matrix when I fucking became a government civilian. To sit there and we're still in this me anyway. I'm still in this phase of like, what is this now? Like 20 fucking years we've been doing this. And before that, when my first deployment was to Operation Northern Watch, like, we've had a nonstop presence in the Middle East for the entirety of my career.
Yeah.
And what happens if we start pulling that back? Let me go on an idealistic rant here.
Sure.
I am an isolationist. Okay. My military career and all the things that I fucking saw, all those little fucking doors that I got to peek into, I'm a fucking isolationist. What I want for this country is to protect the homeland. Because ultimately the American people and how we're going to thrive it has to be within these borders. We have to stop making part of our identity what happens to others.
Sure.
We have to there's something to be said for keeping the bully at arm's length, right? It was what basically we've been doing for 25 fucking years, at least, that I've seen it, that I've been smart enough to see. It's probably only been the past 10. But keeping this at arm's length and being in places that, that you on the outset doesn't make sense. So, well, why are we doing that? To me, the might and the strength of the United States should not be used to fucking shake a stick at somebody. Speak softly and carry a big stick, right?
Sure.
Well, you have to be willing to fucking swing that stick. And are we going to China? Are we willing to swing that stick? It's a good question. Not a question for this show, but that's a good question. Me, Dave Martin, if I could fucking run things, it would be like, take those aircraft carriers, take the bombers and everything else. Like, we exercise, we do all those things. We work with host nations, right? People that we have those relationships with NATO, with, PACOM, like, and we still work those things. But the idea that we're going to fucking keep this footprint out there just to keep somebody else at bay, those days are over. You think about what a cyber attack would do to the globe, let alone a country. I mean, and I don't want you to speak into something that, like, I know that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you don't have to fucking throw a missile at somebody to fucking be on the offensive. That's the world we live in now. So why spend all this energy and money keeping everybody out on the outside when what we really need to do is fucking come in? And start. I'm not saying fucking build border walls. I'm not saying all those things, but you could use that energy to protect this country a lot better and more effectively by standing there and saying, like, yeah, come on. Like, you think you're a badass? You want to fucking, you want to go, right? Come to me and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see when every fucking base on the West Coast, is prepared for some sort of assault from China, because we'd have everything there. You start making skirmishes all over the rest of the fucking world. Now we're spread so thin. It's not an effective. It's not strategically. It's not smart.
And that's kind of what happened. After we were already in Afghanistan, Iraq kicked off, North Korea was flexing. And there was a period of time in those early to mid 2000s where we were spread really thin between all the fucking wars and everything else going on, all the conflicts, and we still had footprints everywhere else. Yeah. So, yeah.
I just think for a moment, all the pins that I have in my map.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Well, I know why,
Yeah.
but in my world, I think that we bring that back, and I think I think we have to change that mindset of here's our national strategy, and our national defense strategy is to continue to, like, if you read them, most people in the military don't read it.
Yeah.
They don't read the doctrine that actually puts them into fucking harm's way. They're ignorant to it, which is typical of the American people, to be honest. I mean, let's be honest. But when that shit comes out, fucking read it. You read that fucking thing. It's a public document. Read it, because this is what's going to tell you what the future holds.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm fucking retired, man. I can't come back in. I'm permanently medically retired. So I can't be drawn back in. My element of the fight is to support things that are at home so that you guys can go fucking fight. I did my shit.
Yeah.
I'm good. I did it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I worry about, and I don't want to even bring up the stuff that's coming up in the chat, but what I worry about when I put my head down at night is right now is the guys that fought in Afghanistan and are still trying to unpackage what the end of this means and how it ended.
Yeah.
So, and I would say to a lot of you Afghan vets, talk to a Vietnam vet. I mean, yeah, not all of them were volunteers like you were,
and that's got to be even worse, honestly. Like being drafted and having to go through all that bullshit, and then again pulling out for what?
Yeah, but think of how long that was compared to how long we were in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
How many generations and you're talking about one generation went through Vietnam.
Yeah.
As we sit here right now, we can speak to airmen, soldiers, Marines that weren't even born.
Yeah.
And they were fighting this war.
Mm-hmm. There are people that have died in Afghanistan that were not alive when 9/11 happened.
Yeah. So but that being said, if you're a veteran and you're out there and you're struggling, reach out to somebody, reach out to your veterans organizations, like within the VFW or the American Legion, or somebody. There's people out there. There's people within the VA that are good. They're good to talk to, and they will help. They will absolutely help.
Yeah.
But if you never talk to somebody, then the answer is always going to be the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So go out there and talk to people, and fucking message me. Whatever. I'll go back and forth. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And I think for me,
I do give a shit. I really do.
For me personally, I think the way I would want to bookend this discussion is kind of what I was alluding to before is, even though it's all over, we're 20 years removed now. Don't ever forget that somewhere out there is one or more groups of people who despise our way of life. They fucking hate Americans, and they would love nothing more than to see all of us die in a fiery death. And don't ever forget that. Yeah. And, even though this seems like ancient history now,
I can't forget it.
Well,
some of us can't forget.
No, and I'm just saying, like, not everybody has the same experiences as us.
Yeah.
Somebody who was 5 years old at the time probably doesn't have the same memories. And then the people who are born now and the people who are born after, I don't think anybody like our age or older is ever going to forget this.
Oh, fuck no.
And we're never going to drop our posture. But,
well, I mean, just, posture notwithstanding, I think, there are lots of really, like, the internet is a thing, if you can believe it. We're actually broadcasting out over it right now.
Yes.
As we tape this, you can also use that medium to your benefit to teach your kids about what happened in 9/11, what it was like. It's not about fucking the airplanes crashing into the buildings. It's not about people falling to their deaths. But stories like what are in the National Geographic special, how it finishes with these stories about people that survived.
Yeah, that survived and people that rose to the occasion to help their fellow man.
and think it, like when you listen to these stories of the survivors, and you go like, wow, this. If you want to measure impact for somebody that didn't have to live through it, listen to these stories. Listen to these people that survived what happened, and you can't help but be moved and have some empathy for that. And I think that's going to be the best way to teach the next generations about it. Like, you got to listen to the survivor stories, and thank God we have the fucking internet now. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
you go to the 9/11 Memorial website, and there's all sorts of resources there even for educators to be able to teach kids. It's about not forgetting. It's about not forgetting, because there's 2,977 human beings that were eliminated off of this planet.
Yeah. They got up just like you and me every single, like it was another morning.
Yep.
They went about their lives and had no idea that, their lives were about to end very soon and very tragically.
All right. So we should stop talking about this.
All right.
Did I get through my notes? Hang on. Blah, 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 blah. Tango, tango, tango. Yep, I got through my notes.
All right.
So
that was our 20-year look back at 9/11. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a downer for everybody. Hopefully it made some semblance of sense.
Yeah.
And we'll be back to some more upbeat topics, because next week we have a topic that people have been chomping at the bit for us to get back to.
Yes.
And it's something I'm very excited to talk about. And I still don't know how we're going to do it in one episode, but I guess we'll try. And that's the music of 1991.
Yeah, 1991 is a big year for me.
For us Gen Xers, 91 was fucking huge. 91. And I'm really looking forward to it. We'll do our normal top 5 lists, as well as massive discussion about all the music that came out in 91, because there was such an eclectic array of different types of music and just so much stuff. And we'll get to all of it, or as much of it as we can.
And if it has to go 2-parter, then so be it.
Yeah.
So be it. Somebody brought up Hurricane Sandy in the chat.
That's a whole other discussion, which actually, haven't we had an episode on that already?
No.
I thought we did a Sandy episode.
No.
Okay. Well, then we probably need to.
Yeah.
When's that anniversary coming up? Well, I guess
right around my birthday.
Okay.
That's how long has it been? 11 years? No, it hasn't been that long. 8 years? When was Hurricane Sandy? Chat, help.
Yeah. Jamie, look that up. But anyway, after the music of 1991, Dave has acquiesced, and he is doing a topic that I've really wanted to do for a while now. And we are going to watch a movie that neither of us has seen, but it's a movie I'm very familiar with, like the concept of it and what happens in it. And we're going to watch and talk about on the podcast the classic movie Birdemic.
Classic.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, go to YouTube, Google the trailer for Birdemic, and just take a ganders, and you'll have an idea for what we're in for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Vicar said it was 11 to 12.
Okay.
2012. So it's been 9 years.
So we should just put a pin in that and do it next year for the 10th year anniversary.
Yeah. We've talked about elements of Sandy.
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
But we haven't gone the full thing.
The full.
With any luck, next year you'll be retired.
And then we can be honest.
Really talk about it. Because Hurricane Sandy was one of those things where it was not there's a lot to be said.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with even my current position. It's not about classified or anything else. It's about humanity.
Yeah.
And why I despise it.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. So
you know what I don't despise?
What?
I don't despise the friends of our podcast.
Okay, well, let's hear about some of them.
First and foremost, this episode has been kind of a blah, and if you've held out for this long, we love you. Thank you so much. Shout out to the Use and Abuse podcast, Scott and Kim. They're taking a knee because they had some unfortunate events happen in their family. So we are thinking about you. and hope that things get better for you. So nothing to report as far as their podcasting goes. Like I said, they're taking a knee, as well they should, to take care of themselves and take care of their families. However, you can hook up with the Escape Pod guys. Join.
Oh yeah,
Don Delasnooch. Hey, there's probably you can go on YouTube right now. YouTube.com/C/the Sidebar Cantina.
Yep.
And you could see our fantasy draft last night, which featured the gentleman from the Escape Pod.
Yep.
Don Delasnooch and Brady Big Lovin. Thus week, if you put it on the teleprompter, I will read it, Kelly. Thus week, to catch the history of Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi? Shang-Chi.
And the Legend of the Ten Rings, the new Marvel movie. They're talking about it.
That I don't give a shit about. Along with a spoiler-free review of the movie. They're going to go see it, I think, tomorrow night, if I remember correctly.
Tomorrow night. Our lives will change.
Oh, my God.
Tomorrow night.
The fucking South Park movie. We have to do
it. Yes, we do.
Hop into our live chat on YouTube, ATSW The Escape Pod, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're streaming on your favorite podcasting app. Nothing out of Sweet Studios this week, aside from the draft. In the meantime, enjoy past covers of the quarantine sessions for bands that were real popular in 1991, including his latest release of Airborne's Back in the Game and other favorites like Radiohead's Creep and Nirvana's Drain You. Subscribe to Sweet Studios on YouTube and give him a follow on Instagram for the latest updates. He's also got Big Swede's Great Adventure.
Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, no, that was Pee-wee, right? Pee-wee Herman's Big Adventure?
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Not Pee-wee Herman's Big Adventure?
No, just Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Okay. So, yeah, follow Sweet Studios.
How did they get away with that? Pee-wee's Big Adventure. My God.
Hello, 90s. Right? That was 90s, right?
Early that might have been 80s. Yeah, that might have been like 88-ish.
Our own Lunar Girl will be representing the Sidebar Cantina in this week's episode of Press Play Streaming Studios, one of our Red 5 network brethren and sisters, where they will be discussing Netflix supernatural horror, Blood Red Sky. Show her some support in the live chat on Thursday, 19:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Excuse me. And speaking of our Red 5 family, in the Red 5 news this week, Lunar Girl represented the Sidebar Cantina on Saturday's Red 5.
She's hangout. Everywhere.
She is everywhere. She's the best, and we love her. She is our social media director and also the face of the podcast. Thank God, because our ugly mugs are just too much.
Speak for yourself, asshole.
Especially you. Nice hair. The live stream included Ro and Chantal from the Scarif Scuttlebutt, and Alan from Press Play, Mike from Mighty Marvel Geeks, Andrew from Science Fictionary, and Charles and Pat from Conversations. Check out the replay on YouTube at Red 5 Network.
All right.
And I already did the read for the followers to participate in the Parsec Awards.
All right. Well, then that is the end of this episode.
Yes.
So thanks everybody for joining us again. Sorry it was such a downer of an episode, but it had to happen.
85. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was 85.
Wow. Okay. I kind of thought it was like late 80s, but yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a kid's movie. Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Right.
God, gotta fucking love.
Gotta love the 80s, man.
Yeah, Hollywood in the 80s. So, all right. Well, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you sticking with us. See, we still have a lot of people in the YouTube chat.
Yes.
Stick around for the after party.
Yes.
And until next time, Dave and everybody else, go fuck yourself.
Okay, now what do I click?
Was that Barney?
Barney, yeah.
Okay.
Last week it sounded like a lot like Ray Romano, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deborah.
I gotta pee.
You do that.
I'm gonna go do that.
Say hi to Kristen while you're out there.
She said she usually waits.
However. It hurts. Are you all right?
No.
Everything hurts sometimes. Everybody cries. All right, sorry, I just had to start my audio extracting. So, hey, we got Hector in the chat. Did you just now get in? Thank you, Isaac. Kristen, yeah, stay put for a couple minutes because, yeah, he's out there peeing. Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about the Ida remnants that hit this last week, but fuck, that was crazy for a day where we had like legit fucking tornadoes touch down and rip through fucking parts of a town. It was pretty fucking wild. The Ida remnant that blew through last week. The fucking you saw the video of the tornado that ripped through, right?
I saw the fucking tornado.
Oh, did you?
I saw the fucking funnel cloud.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we didn't even.
Did you see the video of the guy that was in his house and he sees the fucking tornado starting to form? He's like, I better get in my basement. Runs down into his basement. You hear a boom, like he's running video this whole time. You hear fucking boom upstairs. He goes up, like all the windows in his house are fucking blown out. He looks out the window and there's the tornado like leaving like his house and it's ripping through more houses in his fucking neighborhood.
In Mullica Hill, which is south of where we are right now, is where the EF3 fucking touchdown. So I forgot that was this week.
Yeah. Well,
so I was, Kathy and I were driving. She had piano lessons. I think it was this Wednesday when all this happened. Does that sound right?
Yes.
I think
because the only day I went to work this last week was Thursday. And it was the day before that because I was expecting to see a shitload of debris everywhere driving to work that day, but I really didn't.
Yeah, well, it's a tornado, right? So it's isolated to that particular path.
Yeah.
So we were, I sat in the car while she was in piano, and we got in the car, and it's raining kind of heavy, but not like really like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. And it we got the tornado warning. Right on the phone, so we're driving actually like past your house, like we kind of came through this way, and went down Evesham.
Yeah,
right. And as we're crossing the basically underneath the speed line, we get the tornado warning. We're like, the phones blow up.
Yeah,
we're like, okay, that's fucking interesting. So I'm driving with my head like this, like I'm looking for the fucking. I'm looking for a tornado. And she's like yelling at me to fucking pay attention. She's like, telling
watch
me,
the road as you're driving.
She's like, hey, they're stopping, maybe we should brake, that type of thing. So, and I'm staring at it. We go past our Triton High School. Right?
Dingleberries?
I might have a couple. We get past the high school and it's not raining. It's very eerily calm.
Yes, and I remember that too. I remember looking outside. Me and my son Ben were outside and we're watching, and there was like a lot of like fast moving clouds, but then it got real calm. I'm like,
yeah,
that's weird.
And Kathy was like, "This is not good. Like this is something that doesn't seem right." So we turn up through the back road, and Runnymede is like the highest place in South Jersey, like the Irish Hill that's up there. That's like we've talked about it before on the show. It's where Deluxe Bakery is. Like that's on Irish Hill.
Okay,
so
now I know it.
yeah, so when you're cresting over that, you get to see not much. You're basically seeing Deptford.
You don't see much.
So
but you see Deptford, and that may be.
So after we crested, we saw you saw the funnel cloud, like you could see the blackness of these clouds, and just as we're cresting the hill, and it's just enough of a sight picture for both of us to go like, "Holy fuck! Did you see that?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So we fucking, get home as fast as possible. And then when we came over another hill, it looked like we could see what we saw earlier, and we could see it was closer to us. And it because we're driving towards it, and it was also moving 40 miles an hour. So we're like, holy fuck, it's coming. It looked like it was coming right for the fucking house, right?
Yeah.
And I'm usually not spooked by shit like that, but seeing that fucking funnel cloud on the ground, not like the swirlies, not the mammoth clouds, not the green sky, actually seeing the fucking thing in there was like, asshole puckered up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So We got in the fucking house. My in-laws are like oblivious. Like, what's going on? I don't even know. Right? So fucking get them into the basement. And, it blows by. But then, like I had texted you, I'm like, dude, the way it was tracking, it was going like basically right up fucking 295.
Yeah.
I'm like, and you live right off of 295, so I'm like, fuck. And I mentioned it to you, and you're like, no, it's all good here.
No, it was relatively calm at that point.
But it tracked all the way up there. 4 tornadoes, touchdown out of that.
Yeah.
Climate change is a real thing, people, and it has conspiracy theories notwithstanding. The Earth goes through cycles, and we're in a cycle where we're going to have more severe weather. And that's part of the deal. Me personally, I think all these volunteer fire companies that are around here that have their fucking horns that go off when there's like in a call, you need to start tuning them all to have a tornado warning.
Yeah.
There's been enough of them this year alone to warrant. If you're outside, yeah, the phone's great, but if you don't have that turned on, you don't get it. And some people keep that shit turned off because there's like an Amber Alert that happens in the middle of the night that they don't give a shit about because it's 3 states away.
Yeah. Well, with all the devices we have in our house, between her phone, my phone, her iPad, my iPad, all 3 of our boys' phones, when these tornado warnings goes off, it's boom, the whole fucking house.
Most of the time, mine doesn't go off until like 5 minutes later. I'm like on a delay.
Yeah.
So yeah, they all go off, and then me later.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why, but
we know when the shit goes off.
We know something's up, but
what if you were out running?
I don't know if my watch would or not.
What if I was out running?
Yeah, we don't care.
I've never run in my life.
Then you're probably running from a tornado.
Yes.
Probably that's what's happening. No, I think there should be some sort of broadcast. We have the infrastructure that's already there. It just needs to, just like the giant voice.
Yeah.
What's really ironic, you weren't on base, right? You didn't work Wednesday.
No, I was on leave that day, actually.
So Wednesday, before the tornadoes happened, we had a tornado warning inadvertently go off with the giant voice. I'm actually standing there talking to my commander, and we hear the giant voice kicking off. We're like, "Did you say tornado warning? Like, did you hear that?"
Yeah.
Right? We're like, kind of looking at each other, like, looking out at the sky. I mean, the weather hadn't moved in yet. So, like, you're looking out at, like, really reasonable skies. We're like, I think Vickers was there, too. We're sitting there at the time. And then come to find out, like, I don't know, like 10 minutes later, they put through the AFNet messaging that, like, yeah, inadvertent alarm for the fucking tornado warning. And then, lo and behold, fucking 5 hours later, I'm staring at a fucking funnel cloud.
Right. And, I mean, we knew like a day before that this could be a possibility because we knew this hurricane remnant was coming up and that it was potentially going to bring some, tornado warnings and whatnot. But
those poor fuckers in Tennessee apparently are getting slammed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody really took it seriously at first in this area because we get these warnings all the time. Nothing ever really materializes. But yeah, man, this was the real shit, and it's probably, like you said, time for these local emergency facilities to start taking the shit seriously and start incorporating real tornado warnings.
No, I would agree. Not everybody has the Lunar Girl who's a trained, weather spotter, National Weather Service weather spotter to fucking text us like, "This is coming! Oh my god!" Like, yeah, we know, we got the warning. Thank you. Holy shit. Yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, seeing a fucking tornado funnel cloud. Yeah. What are we doing next week? Music
of 91.
I'm bringing I'll bring that binder with those cards in it. Those Japanese, anti-Japanese propaganda cards.
Sure.
I'll bring them. It's fascinating stuff.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We'll save it for the. Sweet said that to me so many times until the last one touched down a mile from his house. Yeah. Yeah, and we're not talking little tornadoes. We're talking fucking EF3. Fuck. Cow.
Everything I learned about, I was gonna say everything I learned about tornadoes, I learned from Twister.
Right, exactly. Which is
Another cow.
horrible.
That was a great movie. How dare you?
I'm not saying it was. I enjoyed that movie.
I did too.
I'm sorry. I enjoyed it. I don't know why. Because I'm really not a fan of what's his nuts.
Bill Paxton?
Yeah, I'm not a Bill Paxton fan.
Why?
Because he's the same fucking actor in every single thing he does.
He's really good.
Yeah, it's
At
consistency.
At being that
Consistency.
guy. Like I guess Keanu Reeves does it, so why can't
I
he?
am an FBI agent.
Um,
Morpheus?
I was hoping to do that.
Morpheus.
Hello?
I'm not a Bill Paxton fan.
Nah, it's Earl. I need your stapler. Sorry.
Is that the music back on? I was about to say, like, when I went outside, I'm like, oh, hey, at least the neighbors quit the music at fucking 8:00 at night.
Fucking people. Like, why? Why do you need to play your music so loud that your neighbors know exactly what you're listening to? But why is that necessary?
Because they really don't care about
Clearly.
what you think.
Yeah, clearly they don't give a shit. This is why we moved out of an apartment, because we didn't want to have to deal with fucking neighbors and their loud ass music and being inconsiderate. You would think getting a nice big home on a nice big double lot that, you know, we wouldn't have to deal with shit. But no, apparently.
Dude, at least you're not like close enough to the river to hear. Apparently, like in Philly, they deliberately like blare music so that across the river, like it affects like 3 towns. Like if you go like
Just to fuck with people?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Like if you go on this it's a Facebook group for Pennsauken where the lodge is. And you know, we go on there to be a post stuff with like events and shit like that. But a lot of it is talking about like, hey, did you hear it again last night? Like people fucking over in Philly blaring music across the fucking river. Like you're talking half a mile, if not more. How wide's Delaware River there? Now I need to know. Mother.
What?
Oh, Nick apologizes for not being on the show.
Did he apologize for taking my fucking pick?
No, he specifically said, Jason, go fuck yourself.
Man, it's cold.
He was watching 9/11 docs earlier. You really start to feel off. Yeah, it's tough, man. It took me a long time to get through that documentary, and that was not even that bad.
No,
honestly.
it was, for me, it was a very quick watch. Like that 6 hours or whatever went by really fast.
After the first, I got through I think I got through 1.5, and I had to step away from
Well, it was very emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
But again,
it's going to be a tough week, man. No matter which way you slice it, it's going to be a tough week.
Yeah.
But
I like the direction they went with this, where they really like took the positive stories.
No, I
out of
agree.
it,
I think that documentary among the ones that are out there are going to be good. I think there's a Netflix one I'm sure they're all going to have really good elements. I can't finish the
book,
the 9/11 book.
Really?
Can't do it.
How far did you get?
About halfway.
Oh.
It's too much, especially while I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. Like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's funny what makes the needle move, and unfortunately sometimes the needle moves like it's really it's like it's really tough to control that. So
I understand. Yeah.
you know, Kathy was yelling at me for watching those videos because when I started watching them, I was already in a bad headspace. Like it was right after the fucking tornado, so I was already like had this mechanism was turned on, and yeah, it was not good. So when I finished it in a little bit better headspace. But fuck it, dude, it was it's tough, man. It's tough to relive those memories.
Mm-hmm.
And what's tougher is to think that like there's going to be kids that are going to sit there in school and be like, nah, this is old people stuff, like us for Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
What's Pearl Harbor mean to you?
just the stories that we've heard. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's the movies that are made, like right or wrong or whatever it's going to look like. But as we fought a war that started out with digital recording was brand new, to guys were able to wear GoPros out in firefights.
Yeah.
I subscribe. I stupidly, because again, triggers, but watching like Funker 350 or Funker 550, I don't know. It's all like helmet cam footage of like gunfights and shit like that. And it's like, dude, like those movies, there's movies out there already that are like compiling of that, and it's going, like, it's not a here's a war movie where we're going to talk about this and here's this thing going on and here's those guys getting the Japs. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be, here's this fucking guy at the other end of this ACOG fucking firing and getting fired on, and you're gonna have a first person perspective of it, and it's not a fucking movie. That really happened. And again, we are in this, not only as an all volunteer force, but just this, with this digital age, and also being in the military and also doing these things. It's all unprecedented, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can go back to and say that this is, it's just like this, the movement, the Afghan rescue, for lack of a better term. I can't think of what I'm supposed to be calling it, but it's to look back a year from now and look back at it. It's going to be mind blowing.
And I don't think most people have any scope for what
they absolutely
actually happened, because
most people are just hung up on the fact that, like, okay, they're pulling out. They see the pictures of, babies being handed over fences. They see this picture that the media is presenting them, and it's all propaganda. It all, for whatever side you're on, it's all propaganda, and you have to really make a determined effort to figure out what exactly is going on. And yeah, no, not everybody's going to have the insider information that I have.
Yeah.
Right. I know that, but it doesn't.
Hopefully someday the story will come out of like all the sorties going in and out constantly, and just like the amount of effort that went into
I want it to be part of the fucking PME going forward. I want it just like the candy bomber, part of the Berlin airlift. I want those stories to fucking come out for these people, these aircrew members that had to, compartmentalize the rules to fucking make all this shit work.
Yeah. Strap 500 Afghanis to the floor of a C-17.
Try 823 Afghanis to the floor of a C-17. I think that's what's out in public. So it's a lot of fucking human beings in a small space, relatively small space. If you think about it, with one bathroom.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a tough week. I feel you, Swede. I think it'll be good to get into work and actually work through it, try and make it as normal as possible.
Yep. Well, is that about it?
Are we downloaded?
Yeah. I just have to do a little bit of editing, and I'll post the audio. But otherwise, we're pretty much good to go.
Yeah. Are you going into work tomorrow?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, we have super drill this week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Nice.
Not nice, but sure.
It's not nice. I agree. But you just had a long weekend, so
it's irrelevant. I need even longer to prep for something like this.
I agreed. All right. Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, we're going to close it up. Thanks, everybody, for still sticking around. I see we got a lot of people in the chat still. So you guys are awesome. And we'll see you next week with a much more lighthearted topic with the music of 91. Oh, can't wait. What a year. What a year. That was the year, which I'll bring it up next week, the year I got my first CD player.
Word.
It was 91.
91.
Yep. So All right, but we will talk about that next week. Until then, peace, bitches.
See ya.